Chapter 580. In the face of the soldiers' tickling shots, Zhang Qianlei simply ignored them and let them shoot. He calmly went to the barricade at the gate and kicked it out. Boom! The barricade, which weighed more than 1,000 kilograms, was like a piece of paper, lightly rolling and whistling as it flew out. Clang! The barricade flew 20 meters high and fell with an amazing momentum. A simple barracks was smashed into pieces, and all the soldiers inside were killed. Why is there a barricade flying over? The soldiers who heard the noise and came out of the barracks were stunned when they saw this scene. They thought they were hallucinating. Enemy attack. The patrolling soldiers were the first to react. They immediately blew their whistles and the whole barracks was filled with sirens. At this time, Jiang Tian also moved. He stepped on the ground and the ground suddenly collapsed, creating 2 deep pits. He was like a furious dragon coming out of the sea, shooting straight into the sky. The next moment, boom! Jiang Tian was like a missile, falling from the sky and directly stomping an armored vehicle into a metal pancake. The soldiers inside were turned into meat paste before they could even make a sound. Is this the legendary god? Seeing this scene, General Lion was so scared that his cigar fell to the ground. He was stunned and couldn't believe it. It's a god of the alien race. They must be here to snatch the mature blood orchid. No god can resist the temptation of the blood orchid. Elder Yin's pupils suddenly shrank. In an instant he was on full alert. A monstrous murderous aura rose to the sky. He shouted coldly, "Lion, now you must kill them at all costs." Fire! General Lion rushed to the desk, picked up the radio walkie-talkie, and roared in shock and anger. "Open fire, motherfucker! Where are the howitzers? Where's the tank battalion? Beat these 2 weirdos to death." The soldiers woke up from a dream. They picked up their rifles and submachine guns and shot at Jiang Tian and Zhang Qianlei. There were also some who got into the armored vehicles and mobilized the heavy machine guns on them. Bullets shot towards Jiang Tian and Zhang Qianlei like steel chains. However, how could these bullets kill Zhang Qianlei, who had the physique of a half-step human immortal, and Jiang Tian, who had the Gingjin divine body? When the bullets hit Jiang Tian's body, they were like weak snowflakes. With a light shake of his body, they scattered in all directions. This was the result of an increase in strength. Back then, when Jiang Tian was fighting for the Princess Flower on the summit of Mount Everest, he was injured by the cannon god. Now, he was at the 6th level of Qi refinement stage, and the 7th metal true essence was thick and surging. Coupled with the small success of the 7th metal divine body, he was not afraid of artillery tanks. On Earth, other than nuclear weapons, intercontinental missiles, ground-penetrating missiles, and a few other weapons of mass destruction, there was nothing that could hurt him. Even if these heavy machine guns fired continuously and interweaved a net of firepower, they could not harm a single hair on him. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. Old Zhang, kill the commander first. Jiang Tian was not afraid of bullets. His body turned into a bright golden light and rampaged, breaking through the fortifications, knocking away the armored vehicles and rushing toward the command room. Jiang Tian stepped forward and the golden light shot out like a whistling arrow. The golden light was bright and holy, with a kind of ethereal charm. It was like the light of a holy sword of the god of heaven, shooting straight for hundreds of meters. Boom! Within hundreds of meters, the high-grade concrete bunkers, turrets, bunkers and other fortifications were destroyed by Jiang Tian as if they were made of paper. Smoke and dust billowed, and the bricks and cement blocks flew everywhere. The soldiers were directly bombarded by the majestic force and torn into pieces without even a groan. Boom! Boom! The heavy armored vehicles, pickup trucks, and transport trucks were like toy cars that had been thrown out by naughty children. They flew out and smashed into the ground. Thunder rumbled in the camp, and the ground shook for a moment. Kill, 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 kill. Zhang Qianlei showed his invincible might. His thick black hair fluttered like a waterfall. He took the hail of bullets and shook his arms. He soared into the air like a big bird and crossed hundreds of meters in an instant, jumping up and down and rushing toward the command room. Every time he landed, he waved his hand and a lightning bolt that spanned hundreds of meters swept out. Under the bombardment of 10,000 degrees high-temperature lightning, most of the soldiers were turned into ashes in a second. The bullets and shells were like firecrackers exploding. It only took them 3 minutes to cross half of the camp, and they were only 1 kilometer away from the command room at the rear. Rumble. In the northeast of the camp, the tank battalion finally moved out. More than a dozen tanks crushed the rocks and surrounded Jiang Tian and Zhang Qianlei. In this regard, Jiang Tian was not afraid and didn't even bother to look at them. These tanks looked very old. The paint on the tanks had peeled off, revealing their original metallic color. They were basically the Matilda Type 1 and Type 2 tanks used by the British Army in World War II. The Type 1 tanks weighed no more than 10 tons and were less than 5 meters long. Compared to the tanks of the Japanese Self-Defense Force, they were only half of their size. Kacha! The sound of shells being loaded came from the barrels, and the tanks were about to fire. Squeak! Tanks! Zhang Qianlei, on the other hand, was very excited. He screamed and made a gesture with his left hand and waved his right hand. Bolts of lightning appeared out of thin air like dancing silver snakes and shrouded the tanks. Bang! 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 One by one, the tanks suddenly exploded like a pile of ignited firecrackers. The cannonballs installed inside were ignited by the lightning fire and exploded in unison. The earth shook and the mountains shook. Flames soared into the sky. All the tanks were torn apart and lay on the ground with black smoke billowing out. Go! Jiang Tian stepped forward and grabbed a cannon barrel with his right hand. Under the stunned gazes of the people around him, he twisted his waist and swung his arm, throwing the Type 2 tank that weighed more than 10 tons out. The tank, with a whistling sound, crossed a distance of hundreds of meters and smashed toward the command room like a meteorite falling from the sky. How is this possible? They must be real gods. Countless soldiers could not hold on any longer. They threw away the spears in their hands and rushed to kneel on the ground. Ministry of Defense, 218 Government Army, General Lion, calling for reinforcements. Calling for reinforcements. There are foreign gods invading. In the command room, General Lion was so scared that his body trembled like a sieve. He shouted anxiously into the radio walkie-talkie. They are probably here to snatch the blood orchid of the Longevity Tribe. This will destroy our cooperation with the gods of the Longevity Tribe. He received a reply from the Ministry of Defense that they would immediately mobilize other troops to support him. He was slightly relieved. Suddenly, he heard a boom. There was a loud noise. He looked up and saw a tank smash the roof and fall from the sky. Isn't it too fast? General Lion spat out his last words in horror before he was smashed into meat paste by the tank. After the tank smashed General Lion, it did not slow down. It smashed the remaining 2 simple barracks into powder before falling to the ground. All the soldiers were either killed or seriously injured. Only Elder Silver was covered in a silver light to protect his body. His body retreated like an arrow. We surrender. We don't fight anymore. We beg the great gods to spare us from death. The commander was dead. All the soldiers of the 218 Army no longer had the slightest intention to resist. They threw down their guns and weapons and knelt on the ground, trembling, to worship the 2 foreign gods. Africa was wild and backward. Their beliefs were very complicated. Almost every ethnic group had their own gods. Even different tribes and villages in the same ethnic group had different beliefs. But no matter what they believed in, they were almost all superstitious and firmly believed in the existence of gods. They believed that through all kinds of strange rituals, prayers, and offerings, they could directly communicate with the gods to receive blessings and blessings. They could make the weather good, harvest crops, and make diseases and disasters disappear. Before this, they had never seen gods. But every family worshipped the statues and altars of the gods. They prayed and worshipped every day, so they had no doubts. Now that they saw Jiang Tian's miracle, they immediately treated Jiang Tian and Zhang Qianlei as real gods. Only Elder Silver forced himself to calm down. He took a few steps forward and bowed in a strange posture. Honorable foreign gods, this is the territory of the Longevity Tribe. It is ruled by the Bird God, the Stone Man God, and the Black Elephant God. Please stop killing and leave immediately. Otherwise, you will be punished to death by the gods. You are from the Longevity tribe? Jiang Tian looked at him with a half-smile. Yes, my name is Sawyer. I am Elder Silver, one of the 4 great elders of the Longevity tribe. I am also one of the priests who worship the gods. Elder Silver puffed out his thin chest and said proudly, I am the lucky one who is favored by the gods. I am the apostle of the gods' glory. I convey the will of the gods to the world. Cut the crap. Take me to the Longevity tribe and find the blood orchid. I will spare your life. Jiang Tian said indifferently. What did you say? How dare you be rude to the messenger of the gods? Your ugly, dirty, and depraved soul will be mercilessly purified by the gods' punishment. Elder Silver's pupils shrank. He looked at Jiang Tian in shock and anger. Are you not going to lead the way? Before he could finish his words, Jiang Tianxin waved his hand, and a 10-meter-long golden chi weapon swept out from the ground. With a thud, Elder Silver's witchcraft was useless. His legs were cut off by Jiang Tian. He fell to the ground with blood gushing out. He let out an earth-shattering scream. He rolled and screamed as he shouted, You are a god of a foreign race. What right do you have to behave atrociously in Sidoni? You will be mercilessly punished by the gods and die without a burial place. You said this is the territory of the Longevity tribe? Jiang Tian snorted. He looked at the officers kneeling on the ground and said in authentic American English, From now on, the area around Cass Lake, including the Longevity tribe, belongs to me. Do you have any objections? The high-ranking officers of the 218th Route Army were scared out of their wits. They wanted to run but did not dare to. They were more or less cultured. They knew that the person in front of them was not a god, but he definitely had the strength that was comparable to or even beyond a god. With his strength, it would only take a day for him to defeat the entire Sidoni, suppress the warlords, and establish a new country. As long as Jiang Tian was willing, even if they ran to the ends of the earth, Jiang Tian could kill them with one slap. Now that they heard Jiang Tian's words, they did not dare to hesitate. They hurriedly said, The 218th Route Army obeys the oracle of the gods. Look, at least the area around Cass Lake belongs to me. Jiang Tian looked at Elder Silver and said indifferently, Now, take me to the Longevity tribe and expel those fake gods. Chapter 581. The battle is already over? This combat power is too terrifying. One man breaking 1,000 armies, breaking 1,000 armies. When Zhu Jiangchao and the others arrived, everyone was stunned. The entire camp looked like it had been bombarded by cluster missiles. Smoke and dust billowed, flames soared into the sky, and scorched earth was everywhere. Broken limbs and corpses were everywhere, and the smell of blood, smoke, and ozone filled the air. Many of the fortifications had collapsed, and it was a mess. Black smoke billowed from the tanks as they lay on the ground like dead turtles. Broken armored vehicles lay on the ground in disarray. Corpses and bloodstains were everywhere. In the middle of the battlefield, Jiang Tian stood proudly like a god, and many soldiers of the 218th Route Army knelt on the ground, trembling. Monkey Chi Tian held Tao and jumped from Huang Linger's shoulder to Jiang Tian's shoulder. He pointed at the tanks and squeaked. He was protesting that Jiang Tian didn't bring him along to fight. Last time in Japan, he had destroyed armored vehicles and tanks to his heart's content and was very happy. Stop squeaking. There are rebels everywhere. Don't you have a chance to show off? Jiang Tian smiled in resignation and scratched Heaven's equal to Heaven's back. Heaven's equal curled up his neck in comfort and grinned. Lu Kua's confidence doubled as he looked at Jiang Tian with anticipation and admiration. Master Kong, Jin Ning's branch in Sidoni has been attacked by the rebels, and they can't hold on for much longer. More than 50 employees and Chinese refugees are in danger. Raise the 5-starred red flag. Jiang Tian looked at Yuan Kursen. Yuan Kursen took out a 5-starred red flag from the car and walked to the flagpole. She lowered the flag of Sidoni and the government's army and slowly raised the 5-starred red flag with a solemn expression. Everyone, Don't worry. The place where the 5-starred red flag is our home. We will never abandon any of our countrymen. Jiang Tian's firm voice resounded throughout the entire camp. Even though Jiang Tian had returned after 10,000 years of cultivation, he had never forgotten that he was a descendant of Yan and Huang. Now that his compatriots were in trouble and were caught in the fire and water of war, it would have been fine if he hadn't run into them, but since he had, how could he just stand by and watch? Everyone in Huaxia stood solemnly and raised their heads solemnly. Their blood boiled as they sang the national anthem with tears in their eyes. After that, Jiang Tian acted like a great general, issuing orders one after another. Zhu Jiangchao, I'll leave this army to you. Kill anyone who dares to resist. Jiang Tian said calmly. Take out the skills you learned in War Dragon, strengthen the fortifications, train these black ghost soldiers, and turn them into steel fortresses to protect the Chinese. Are you confident? Zhu Jiangchao roared. All right, from now on, this will be Huaxia's refuge. Jiang Tian nodded satisfactorily and tossed Qitian to Lin Fengmian. Lin Fengmian, you and Lu Kuo will take your weapons and pick up some soldiers with good military skills. Drive to the Jining Group's branch office in Dasoni and rescue all the Chinese. If Heaven's Equal follows you, he'll be of great use at critical moments. Yes, sir. I don't care if they are the government forces, the resistance forces, or the rebels. Kill anyone who dares to stop us. Yes, sir. Lin Fengmian replied loudly as his blood boiled. Together with Lu Kuo and the others, he found a bulletproof vest and a steel helmet and put on their weapons. Seeing this, Jiang Tian nodded. Lin Fengmian was a grandmaster at the peak of the transcendent state, so he was not afraid of bullets. Equipped with bulletproof vests and modern weapons, he was not afraid of an army of over 100 people. Even Heaven's Equal Monkey was a god of slaughter. He had once followed him through the 28th Japanese Army and Air Force Brigade. Cerrone's stragglers were not even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. They were only 30 kilometers away from Sidoni's company, so it should not be a problem. Brother Zhang, speed is the most important thing in war. Don't get caught up in the battle. Go to San Juan alone and take down President Cuba. It was the first time Jiang Tian had used such honorifics in front of Zhang Qianlei. He said in a deep voice, "You have to intimidate him and make him order the government forces not to harass the Chinese and our bases. If he dares to disobey, kill him. Appoint a new leader." Very well, Brother Jiang. Don't worry, I won't let you down. Zhang Qianlei cracked a smile and said with a murderous look. When Zhu Jiangchao heard this, his face was filled with shock, and all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. He had heard that before World War II, an immortal state warrior had dominated the world with his powerful martial arts. He had massacred tens of thousands of soldiers and overthrown the governments of small countries. Before this, I didn't believe it and thought that it was all fabricated. Now that I've seen it for myself, I know that the rumors are true. However, the next second, Zhang Qianlei said awkwardly, "But I don't speak English. I need an interpreter." "Take Qitian with you." Jiang Tian said, "Once this is done, don't waste any time. Meet us at the Cass Lake camp. Let's go." Before Jiang Tian could finish his words, he picked up the silver elder like an eagle picking up a chick. He signaled Huang Linger with his eyes, and the two of them turned into two streams of light, one gold and one green, instantly flying hundreds of meters away. "Master Kong, what are you going to do?" everyone asked. "I'm going to destroy the Changshu tribe and get the immortal Ascension Blood Arrow Orchid." Jiang Tian's voice traveled through the forest and came from afar. He seemed to be a few kilometers away, but his voice was still clear. The Changshu tribe was only a few kilometers away from the Cass Lake camp. It only took Jiang Tian 10 minutes to reach the Changshu tribe. The Changshu tribe was located in a green valley with a radius of 3 to 4 kilometers. The buildings here were more advanced, sturdy, and comfortable than those in other places. Along the way, Jiang Tian saw that most of the houses in other tribes and villages were made of yellow mud, with simple roofs made of reeds, bark, and banana leaves. Here, small European-style villas were hidden in the dense forest. There were even satellite receiving equipment, power stations, and an asphalt road leading outside. It was like a paradise on earth. From far away, Jiang Tian could see the huge waterfall rushing down from the cliff. The water poured down in torrents, like silver, like silk, like snow. The water splashed in all directions, and the sound of the water rumbled. Above the deep pool below, the water gushed out from the bottom of the pool like a silver dragon, surrounded by white mist. The waterfall contained abundant spiritual qi of heaven and earth. It was no less than the spiritual spring on the cultivation planet, and even more than the dragon marrow spiritual vein in the Shuangqing villa. Such an abundant spiritual spring, no wonder it can breed a top-grade spiritual herb like the Celestial Ascension Blood Arrow Orchid. Jiang Tian couldn't help but exclaim. The Celestial Ascension Blood Arrow Orchid, a top-grade spiritual herb, blooms once every 500 years and bears fruit once every 1,000 years. Jiang Tian's divine sense immediately scanned the few blood-colored orchids that were taller than a person, especially the fist-sized red fruit, which made his heart beat faster. These Celestial Ascension Blood Arrow Orchids have all bloomed, and one of them even bears a blood orchid fruit. It can be seen that they have absorbed spiritual qi for at least 1,000 years. The effect must be amazing. Jiang Tian, it seems a little dangerous. Huang Linger's expression turned serious, and she pulled out the divine wood of heavenly source stick. Don't be afraid. Jiang Tian squeezed her little hand comfortingly. Next, a fight is inevitable. They are not human, and they often eat people. You just have to kill them. You have to get used to it slowly. His divine sense also felt that the entire tribal valley was filled with a dangerous aura. However, the Celestial Ascension Blood Arrow Orchid and the Blood Orchid fruit were right in front of him. Not to mention a few tribes of the ruins of immortality. Even if there were really gods descending, Jiang Tian would kill them and get these heavenly materials and earthly treasures. I'm not afraid. I want to fight side by side with you and kill demons. Huang Linger smiled sweetly, like 100 flowers blooming. This was also the reason why Jiang Tian brought Huang Linger with him this time. The demons of the alien tribes of the ruins of immortality were not human. Huang Linger's psychological burden to kill them would be less, and she would gradually adapt to killing and fighting. The gods of our longevity tribe are real gods who fell from the sky. How can you kill them? The Silver Elder had lost too much blood, and his breath was weak. His face was pale, but he was stubborn and still full of ridicule and resentment. How dare you snatch the blood orchids of the gods? You will go to hell and be mercilessly burned by the fire of hell. Old man, you talk too much nonsense. With a shake of his arm, Jiang Tian directly crushed the Silver Elder into meat paste. After that, he stepped on Xiao Hei's flying sword and transformed into a streak of light. He stretched out his hand and grabbed towards the mature Immortal Ascension Blood Arrow Orchid. He put the mature fruit and the roots into his storage ring. As for the other plants, he only needed to wait for another 10 days and half a day to bear blood orchids. Jiang Tian did not want to waste natural resources, so he waited for them to mature. Who dares to snatch our blood orchids? This is a sacrifice to the gods. Suddenly, a thunderous voice resounded through the entire longevity tribe and echoed in the valley, like the roar of an evil spirit. The chief was furious. Is there an invasion? One after another, powerful silhouettes burst out from the houses and leaped onto the roofs. They roared loudly and looked around. That shameless thief is at the Blood Orchid Waterfall. He has begun to pick our spiritual fruits. Go, my loyal descendants, go and kill them. The chief's voice was full of anger and hatred, as if he wanted to cut Jiang Tian into pieces to vent his anger. Kill him. How dare he invade our longevity tribe? Use his blood and cruel divine punishment to wash away his monstrous sins. Many tribe members heard the news and roared angrily. Like grasshoppers, they jumped up and down on the roof and between the trees. They crossed hundreds of meters in the air with one step and rushed toward the Blood Orchid Waterfall. Boom, boom, boom. 3 powerful figures suddenly appeared above the waterfall, floating in the air and surrounding Jiang Tian. They drank the spirit spring of the Blood Orchid Waterfall and even swallowed some of the fallen leaves and flowers of the blood orchid. Although they were practicing some crude witchcraft left behind by their tribe, their qi and blood were abnormally strong and their strength was comparable to that of Hua Xia's transcendent state warriors or mystic enlightening sorcerers. The leader was an old man, wearing a colorful bedsheet and a bamboo hat. His thin body was smeared with gold powder. He glanced at the silver elder's corpse on the ground, his eyes filled with shock and anger. He looked up at Jiang Tian coldly and shouted in English, "Who are you? How dare you come to our longevity tribe to kill people and steal our treasures, blaspheming the gods? Hand over the fruits you picked, and I will offer you as a sacrifice to the gods so that your fallen body and soul can be purified and transcended." Chapter 582. Gods? In my eyes, you are nothing but a bunch of ants. Hee, hand it to you? No way. Jiang Tian said calmly. If you submit to me now, kneel down and beg for mercy, I might be willing to let you go. This place was barbaric and primitive. There were wars and massacres everywhere, and the social order had long been disrupted. There was no reason to talk about it, and the bigger fist was the law. Besides, the Changshu tribe were not kind people. They called themselves the messengers of the gods, but in reality, they were nothing more than a bunch of vicious demons. Along the way, little Arthur told Qinfan that the Changshu tribe would capture 3 or 4 people to sacrifice to the so-called gods every day. In the last 3 years, the Changshu tribe had captured hundreds of people from the K tribe not far from them. The Changshu tribe had eaten almost all the people from the nearby tribes. Little Arthur had gone to San Juan to work to avoid the war and the Changshu tribe. Killing them, Jiang Tian naturally did not have any psychological burden. They were even more evil than those government troops who killed without batting an eye. What a barbaric kid! How dare he blaspheme our gods? Elder Bronze, kill him! An elder wearing a broken bronze armor with a necklace made of a few children's skulls hanging around his neck was covered in blood. He stepped on the air and rushed over, waving a thick stone stick and smashing it towards Jiang Tian. In fact, the Elder Bronze was the leader of the Changshu tribe. His position was equivalent to that of a cultivation elder, and he was a few times more powerful than the Elder Silver who was in charge of diplomacy. Years ago, the Changshu tribe had been attacked by the Elder Bronze, and a few tanks were smashed into pieces by the Elder Bronze's stone club. The Elder Bronze's stone club was as powerful as a transcendent master's attack. The force of the blow was so powerful that it could crush a small car. Useless. In response, Jiang Tian only waved his hand casually. Boom! A giant golden palm the size of a millstone appeared out of thin air and slammed toward Elder Bronze. Crack! The Elder Bronze didn't even have time to scream. His body that was harder than steel instantly split into pieces, causing blood and pieces of flesh to shoot out in all directions, and he died without a complete corpse. Hiss! Seeing this, all the powerhouses of the longevity tribe sucked in a breath of cold air, their eyes filled with fear. Elder Black Iron, who originally wanted to attack, also quietly retreated a few steps and hid behind Elder Gold. Are you from Hua Xia or Japan? Was it Miyamoto Geniki or Yizhantin? Elder Gold's expression changed drastically. He squinted his eyes and a golden light shot out from them. You are not qualified to know my name. Jiang Tian's face was full of disdain. He slowly landed on a protruding boulder on the cliff. He took out a cup and filled it with spiritual spring water. I declare that from now on, these exotic flowers and plants, as well as the longevity tribe, belong to me. Call your chief and those monsters out to be my servants and mounts. What did you say? Elder Gold was so angry that the veins on his forehead were throbbing. He waved the golden staff in his hand and roared, Children, kill this blasphemous sinner. Kill him. Kill, kill, kill. Use his blood as an offering to our true God. He is a cultivator. God must love his flesh and blood. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Dozens of members of the longevity tribe let out a thunderous roar and rushed toward Jiang Tian. Each of them was more than 100 years old, but they were very powerful. Some of them had taken the spiritual spring water and swallowed the fallen leaves of the blood orchid. Their bodies had been awakened, and even their genes had mutated and become arcanists. Some of them had practiced primitive dark witchcraft, which could trigger the energy of heaven and earth. They were comparable to mystic enlightening sorcerers. Swoosh, swoosh. There was a black man whose arms were longer than his knees. His feet were similar to his palms and were much longer than ordinary people. Like a monkey, he climbed on the stone walls and vines and rushed over hundreds of meters like a shooting star. He opened his bloody mouth and bit, while his sharp claws, which were covered with sharp nails, scratched at Jiang Tian. He had mutated his monkey genes and was a D-level arcanist. In terms of strength, he could easily kill an internal force expert. Jiang Tian slapped him with his left hand. The slap directly embedded him into the stone wall. His bones and tendons were broken, and he was covered in blood. He died in the blink of an eye. Clang. At the same time, Jiang Tian waved his fingers and a golden Gingjin Qi soldier slashed out like mercury. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Blood surged as more than a dozen members of the longevity tribe were cut in half. The corpses fell into the deep pool below, splashing water several meters high. In an instant, the entire deep pool with a radius of tens of meters was dyed red. There were also a few who had their limbs cut off. Their intestines and stomachs were torn. They were still alive, screaming and struggling in the water. The remaining members of the longevity tribe landed on the ground and stopped. They did not dare to move forward. What? He is so powerful. The Golden Elder was so shocked that he staggered and almost fell from the sky. His eyes were filled with shock and regret. His heart was bleeding. These people were the elite warriors of the longevity tribe. Usually, they could fight against 100 people. They had spent a lot of spirit spring and flower petals to train them. But now, they were all dead in a second. The Black Iron Elder's face changed drastically. His eyes were filled with fear. He said in a trembling voice, "This person is so powerful. We are definitely not his match. Why don't we summon the gods to suppress him?" The gods are resting. How can we disturb them? This is an unforgivable crime. The Golden Elder shook his head. His face was filled with reverence and fear. He was extremely devout and respectful to the so-called gods. But what should we do now? We are no match for him. I am afraid that even the chief can't do it. The Black Iron Elder said anxiously. At this time, the powerful warriors of the longevity tribe were in a difficult position. When he asked them to fight, they didn't dare to step forward, but when he asked them to leave, they were very unwilling. In their hearts, the three gods were supreme and could not be blasphemed. Jiang Tian took away the resources of the gods. How could they let Jiang Tian go? They would be punished by the heavens. Warriors, you are the warriors of the gods. The gods will protect you. Even if you die, you must fight. Even if you die, your souls will ascend to the heavenly court. The Golden Elder shouted loudly. Then, he waved his scepter and chanted with a devout expression. He used the Huaxia language to chant, "Heavenly Court." Back then, the flying sword that killed the sacred battle ape Qi Aosheng also came from the Heavenly Court. It seems that the descendants of the ruins of immortality are indeed here. Jiang Tian's heart suddenly skipped a beat. His eyes were burning. But now was not the time to think about it, because the warriors had charged over again. At dawn, I woke up beside the tomb. The walls of Death Knell Town were only mottled with pain and wounds. Looking back again, the battlefield of blood and fire, the glory of the past. Only the shell of a slaughtered body. Empty eye sockets, no blood, no tears, no light. Looking into the distance, the glory of the tribe, the glory of decay. Water could not wash away the old wounds on the finger bones. Broken armor could not hide the warrior's faith. Holding the spear again, returning to the forefront, the horn sounded again in the distance. The Golden Elder was singing in the dialect of the longevity tribe. The lyrics were obscure and difficult to understand, but there was a sense of transcendence, emptiness, and holiness, as well as a sense of surging battle intent. When the chant sounded, the eyes of the tribal warriors suddenly burst out with blood-red light. An unprecedented battle intent surged. Madness, bloodthirstiness, brutality, fearlessness, and all rationality disappeared. Kill him. Fight for the gods. We are the slaves of the gods. Death is glory. They roared and charged toward Jiang Tian like a pack of wild beasts. Each of them unleashed a terrifying combat strength. It's a secret technique to control the mind. That's some skill. Seeing this, Jiang Tian sighed inwardly. Then he looked coldly at the Golden Elder and said, Hey, stop singing. I'm talking to you. Your singing is terrible. Sing one more line, and the next one I'll kill will be you. How strange. This undead overture can interfere with the divine soul and make people submit to the majesty of the gods. Why is he not swayed? The Golden Elder was actually more surprised and uneasy. But at this time, he had no time to pay attention to Jiang Tian. He stepped into the void, waved his wand, and continued to sing the song that interfered with the divine soul. Enough. Jiang Tian was a little annoyed. He used the dragon roar demonic sound. A long roar, sonorous like a dragon's roar, sharp like a phoenix's cry, and like rolling thunder, poured down from the ninth heaven. In an instant, the people fell to the ground, holding their heads and rolling on the ground. But this was just the beginning. Jiang Tian's roar became louder and louder, until it reached the clouds. Visible sound waves spurted out from his mouth, rippling out, mixed with the golden true core strength, spreading out layer by layer. The sound shook 100 miles, and even the camp at Cass Lake could hear it clearly. Rumble. The whole Longevity tribe shook, as if a tropical storm was sweeping through. Crack, crack. All the windows exploded in an instant, and pieces of glass danced in the air like butterflies. The scene at Blood Orchid Waterfall was even more shocking. The Golden Elder was at the back of the formation. He was barely able to hold on, but his chanting stopped abruptly. He held his head and fell to the ground. He hurriedly sent out a few golden ripples to block the attack and staggered back. He trembled, grabbed the Black Iron Elder's hand and shouted, I'm seriously injured, ask the chief and the gods to come out. It's too late. Look. The Black Iron Elder smiled bitterly and looked forward. The Golden Elder looked up and saw that with Jiang Tian as the center, the tribe's warriors fell one after another, like rice being harvested by a sickle. The nearest few had their skin cracked and fell off, and their heads exploded. Within a few hundred meters, there was not a single tribe warrior left. They were all dead. This. The Golden Elder was dumbfounded, and his heart fell into the abyss, and his mouth tasted bitter. Jiang Tian roared, and killed 100 warriors of the Longevity tribe, which was almost all the combat power of the tribe. This was also the most painful loss in the history of the Longevity tribe, and it was unbearable. What should we do? We will be killed by him too. The Black Iron Elder trembled, and smiled bitterly. Just as the Golden Elder was in despair. Evil man, how dare you kill our tribesmen, and blaspheme our gods, I will tear you into pieces. Suddenly, a thunderous roar was heard. Chapter 583. Then he saw a young black man with a strong physique gliding over on a big bird. The chief is here. We're saved. Chief, our warriors have all been killed by this blasphemous thief. Please kill this person and avenge our children and grandchildren. Seeing this, the elders of the Gold Clan and the Black Iron Clan knelt down and cried with reverence in their eyes. The chief was not only the leader of their tribe, but also the priest who served the three gods and had the most powerful Dharma powers. If he took action, the invading demon would surely die. Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes. The giant bird's wings were 10 meters long. When it spread its wings, it looked like a dark cloud. Its feet were three-petaled, fleshy, and had sharp hooks growing from them. Its wings were covered with azure feathers like dragon scales, and at the end of the wings were upper limbs like human hands. At the end of the slender claws were bone hooks with a metallic luster. The scariest thing was its triangular head without a single hair. Its facial features looked like a rat's, but they were shorter and looked more like a bat's. Its green bean-like eyes protruded and shot out a fierce light. It bared its fangs and screeched. Huang Linger was shocked. Her pretty face was filled with fear and disgust. She grabbed Jiang Tian's hand and retreated behind him. Jiang Tian, what the hell is this thing? It's so ugly, so scary. It's called the green scale fire owl. Jiang Tian wasn't scared at all. Instead, he looked excited as if he had found a treasure. Don't be afraid. You can kill them too. We'll catch them later and make them your mounts. The green scale fire owl was a spirit beast that was very useful to cultivators even on the cultivation continent. It was extremely fast and could fly over 1,000 miles in a day. It could even break the sound barrier. Besides, it had amazing defensive abilities. A 1,000-year-old green-scale fire owl could withstand the attacks of a Foundation establishment grand cultivator. Its fighting power wasn't weak. Its feathers and bone hooks could easily kill a transcendent grandmaster, and it could spit out a special fire. This kind of flame was not inferior to the Samadhi true flame and other deviant flames. It could smelt everything. In short, it was one of the best mounts for chi refinement cultivators. In Jiang Tian's eyes, it was far more valuable than the world's best armed helicopters, and even comparable to fighter jets. What was even more shocking was that behind this huge green-scaled fire owl, there were dozens of adult fire owls. Every single one of them had surging battle prowess. Jiang Tian was overjoyed. All right, if I can subdue all of them, I can probably get one for each of the Heavenly Alliance's members. That's good. It's just that they're a little ugly, so we have to give them hats and sunglasses. Seeing Jiang Tian so calm, Huang Linger's confidence doubled, and her beautiful eyes curved into a beautiful crescent moon shape. While the leading green-scaled fire owl retracted its wings and landed on the mountain peak opposite of Jiang Tian. Its claws gleaming with a metallic luster rubbed against the mountain rocks, producing dazzling sparks. The chieftain held a scepter in his hand, on which were engraved 3 strange totems. One of the totems had the head of a bird and the body of a human, with a pair of wings on its back. One of them was tall and seemed to merge with the mountains and earth. The last one looked like a snake coiled in the water. When the chieftain saw the corpses around the waterfall, he flew into a rage. He pointed at Jiang Tian and shouted angrily, "You dare to kill the people of my longevity tribe? Even if you are far away, you will be killed. Today I will tear you into pieces." He wanted revenge for the death of his children and grandchildren. In his opinion, the Changshu tribe was a sacred place blessed by the gods. Only by killing Jiang Tian could he vent his anger. "Kill him." The chieftain waved the scepter with a furious face. Suddenly, the green-scaled fire owls took to the air again and pounced on Jiang Tian from all directions. The scene was shocking. There were dozens of green-scaled fire owls, and they were so dense that they covered the sky. Each of the green-scaled fire owls was deadly and could easily kill a transcendent grandmaster. Bang bang bang. Jiang Tian flicked his fingers, but the finger auras missed. The golden finger auras shot out like bullets from a sniper rifle and landed on the green-scaled fire owls. Ouch, ouch, ouch. The fire owls let out a shrill cry. Sparks flew from the green-scaled fire owls' bodies as their dragon-scaled feathers fell off. They stumbled around like headless flies, but luckily, they didn't fall. What? This foreign creature can hurt the green-scaled fire owls? The chieftain was shocked and couldn't believe it. These green-scaled fire owls couldn't even be killed by machine guns. Did it mean that this person's attacks were as powerful as cannonballs? Little did they know that Jiang Tian was going easy on them because he wanted to tame them. Otherwise, the leaf fire chi weapons would have killed them. The green-scaled fire owls were spirit beasts and were smarter than the spirit beasts. A few of them grabbed boulders that weighed a few hundred kilograms and flapped their wings a few hundred meters in the air, throwing them at Jiang Tian. But these couldn't hurt Jiang Tian. With a wave of his hand, the boulders were thrown far away. At the same time, he took a step forward and slashed out with the leaf fire chi weapon. The chieftain and the green-scaled fire owls fell to the ground. The green-scaled fire owls' wings were broken. They spun in place and rubbed the stones with their claws angrily, splashing sparks. "Black Monkey, what other tricks do you have? Just use them." Jiang Tian looked at the shocked and furious chieftain and sneered. "Bastard, do you think I don't have the ability to kill you? The chieftain was furious. He waved his scepter and recited a string of obscure spells, 10,000 owls god-killing array. Suddenly, the green-scaled fire owls lined up in 3 neat teams above Jiang Tian and then rushed toward Jiang Tian without fear of death. Boom! Jiang Tian stirred up a 7th metal true essence shield. Like a golden bubble being blown up, it suddenly shook out. Several green-scaled fire owls that rushed first were shaken and flew out 10 meters away, but they immediately flapped their wings and lined up at the end of the team. More green-scaled fire owls were connected head to tail and rushed over. The impact of each one was very majestic, making earth-shattering noises. It could break helicopters, overturn tanks, and make the 7th metal true essence shield ripple. It seemed to be in danger of collapse. It's really troublesome. The ancestor of the fire owls who cultivated into a human body did not come out. It seems that I have to kill all these green-scaled fire owls. Jiang Tian sighed a little regretfully. These green-scaled fire owls, he could naturally kill them with the 7th metal chi weapon. It's just a pity to kill them. They could clearly be built into a flying army of spiritual birds. If a master of the immortal realm rode on the green-scaled fire owls, coupled with hot weapons, the combat effectiveness would definitely be doubled. How powerful would it be, comparable to thousands of soldiers and horses? Standing in a safe corner behind Jiang Tian, Huang Linger saw Jiang Tian frowning. That faint sense of loss made her very anxious and uncomfortable. She wanted to see a smile on Jiang Tian's face, just as she expected the dark clouds to disperse and reveal the bright sunshine. Entangle! She almost instinctively waved the heavenly source wooden stick in her hand and displayed the divine withered art. Boom! Boom! At this moment, the originally pitch-black night sky was lit up by streaks of green light. The green light erupted from the heavenly source wooden stick, like the aurora borealis, changing constantly, full of ethereal and holy aura. The green light enveloped countless plants and floated over the blood orchid waterfall. At this moment, time seemed to pass very slowly. Divine withered art, the first round. The green light fell into the eyes of Jiang Tian, with an indescribable brilliance and beauty. Under the cover of the green light, the hundreds of meters around the blood orchid waterfall, thousands of towering trees, countless green plants, and vines seemed to come alive in an instant. The trees swayed with joy, and the unknown flowers shook crazily as if they were dancing, about to leave the ground and rise into the sky. Amidst the dense and sharp sounds, vines suddenly grew crazily. In the blink of an eye, they were 100 meters long. They were so dense that they covered the sky like giant green pythons. The chief and the 2 elders were stunned. They looked at the green ocean in front of them in disbelief. At this moment, an instant was eternity. Those vines exuded a mesmerizing halo and looked very gentle. In an instant, they jumped to the side of the green-scaled fire owls and wrapped them up. The thick and powerful vines were surrounded by a mesmerizing green wood aura, but they were incomparably dangerous. They were like spirit snakes, pythons, and flood dragons, nimbly circling, coiling, and shrinking. In the blink of an eye, countless vines had wrapped around the green-scaled firebirds like rice dumplings. Bush, bush, bush. Then, those vines were like rubber bands that had been stretched to the extreme and suddenly bounced back. All of them abruptly contracted. Bang, bang, bang. One by one, the green-scaled firebirds crashed into the ground. They were dizzy from the fall and screamed miserably. Oh, oh! They struggled and screamed with all their might, but it was useless. The more they struggled, the more the vines contracted, almost breaking their bones. Not bad. Jiang Tian nodded and praised. The wood aura has completely integrated into the vines within a radius of several hundred meters. Moreover, it has also mobilized the wood element aura of other plants. It can be used at will, making these vines far more flexible than steel wires. Really? I thought it wasn't good. Huang Linger's pretty face blushed. She was both embarrassed and happy. It was a great surprise to receive Jiang Tian's praise. Very good. Jiang Tian affirmed again. Then, he looked at the ghastly pale tribal chief and said calmly, "Trash, I can kill you with a raise of my hand." Tell those 3 ugly monsters of your tribe to come out and die." The tribal chief's face was full of panic. Then he forced himself to calm down and yelled angrily, "You will be killed by the gods. You will die very, very miserably. Who dares to hurt my descendant? Do you want to die?" At this moment, on a mountain peak in the southern part of the tribe, a mournful howl filled with killing intent and anger echoed throughout the heavens and earth. Boom! A dazzling green light shot out from a cave. It was as straight as an arrow and faster than lightning. Heavens, the green-scaled firebird god is finally going to strike. The tribal chief and the 2 elders were ecstatic as they knelt down toward the southern mountain peak. Chapter 584. Almost at the same time, the water in the depths of Koss Lake, which was 10 kilometers in radius, surged as if it was boiling. Boom! Pillars of water that were more than 10 meters high rose up into the sky, and huge waves rose up and down. In this land there are only 3 true gods. Gods of other races are nothing more than insect-like humans. A flood serpent that was more than 50 meters long soared into the air, cackling strangely. It quickly slithered through the forest and pounced over. The scales all over his body flickered with a golden light like the mouth of a bowl. His inverted triangular head was the size of a small car. His eyes were scarlet red like red lanterns, and his golden pupils were like needles. They burst out with an ominous light that was extremely frightening. Boom! Deep in the forest, the ground suddenly crumbled. A giant made of sand rose from the ground like a mountain. The gravel and soil changed rapidly, forming his head, facial features, and limbs in a dazzling manner. He's an overlord. Perhaps if I devour his blood essence, I will be able to forge my own body. The stone giant's facial features were lifelike, and even its expression was lifelike. He sorrowfully looked at his hands, took a big step forward, broke through the dense forest, and rushed towards Jiang Tian. The green light came the fastest. It was a bird demon with a human body and a human head. It had a pair of green-scaled wings on its back. A half-step shape-shifting demon beast. Not bad. Jiang Tian's eyes were filled with excitement. He was delighted to see a prey, and he took a step forward. A half-step shape-shifting demon beast was close to forming a demon core. Some of them even had half a demon core and were as powerful as a Foundation establishment cultivator. This was the first time Jiang Tian had met such a powerful demon beast since he was reborn. Die! Without saying anything, he raised a long, strange hook that was shining with a cold light and threw it towards Jiang Tian. The strange hooks were like the claws of an eagle, sharp and incisive. With a strange howl, they could tear apart a tank. Jiang Tian countered. He waved his finger and a leaf fire chi weapon cut off one of the green-scaled bird god's arms. At the same time, he threw a punch at the bird's chest. Shoo! The green-scaled divine bird was sent flying dozens of meters away before it fell into the forest and screamed in pain. That bastard is so powerful. He can cut off the bird god's arm. That's terrifying. The hearts of the 2 elders trembled as they stared with their mouths agape, unable to believe their eyes. Don't worry. It's just the beginning. Only the chief was able to keep his cool. As expected, the green-scaled bird god used a secret art and formed a new arm. He crawled to his feet, his face covered in dust. He stared at Jiang Tian in shock and anger, gnashing his teeth. Damn you! I've never been so embarrassed even when I fought against the British Army. In the next moment he flapped his wings and shot toward Jiang Tian like an arrow. He was 10 times faster than before and was almost at the speed of sound, which was beyond the limit of a normal martial arts grandmaster. Feathered beast! I'm going to kill you! Jiang Tian snorted coldly with a mocking expression. Back when he was in the outer realm, he had killed countless green-scaled fire owls at the manifestation realm, let alone a half-step manifestation realm cultivator. Go to hell. The green-scaled bird god was enraged. He opened his mouth and spat out a jet of azure fire at Jiang Tian. This fire was thousands of degrees hot and could melt metal. It could turn a tank into molten steel in a few minutes. But to Jiang Tian, it was just a joke. He could even control Zhang Qianlei's thunder laws, not to mention this one. Enough. Seeing this, coldness flashed across Jiang Tian's eyes. He extended both of his hands and sucked away the strange flames. This fire was a biological fire, which was much weaker than the heavenly fire and earthly fire. Besides, the green-scaled bird god wasn't very good at cultivation. After the 3-meter-long flame entered Jiang Tian's palm, Jiang Tian casually grabbed it a few times and compressed it into a cyan-long sword. It became more condensed and the fire didn't flicker at all. It seemed to be made of jade. From afar, it looked like a peerless divine weapon flickering with green light. Jiang Tian held the sword hilt, and his aura instantly changed. In the blink of an eye, he had transformed from an ordinary young man into a peerless sword immortal who had revealed his sharpness. His hair fluttered like a waterfall. He held the sword with his right hand and flicked the hilt with his left hand. However, its lethality was extremely shocking. Like a supersonic fighter breaking the sound barrier, a cone-shaped cloud of white gas shot out from the end of the azure sword. The sharp tip of the sword created streaks of blue lightning from the friction with the air, piercing toward the green-scaled divine bird like a comet piercing through the earth. Facing this sword, the green-scaled bird god was terrified. He flapped his wings and quickly retreated while protecting his body. The 3 chiefs were also shocked. They didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so powerful that he could control the fire of the bird god. Boom! The moment the azure sword hit the green-scaled bird god, it exploded like a missile. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The green-scaled bird god was blown a few hundred meters away like a leaf in a storm and rolled on the ground. His wings were broken and his feathers fell off. His white bones were exposed and his face was covered in mud. So powerful! How can there be such a powerful master in this world? The green-scaled bird god was terrified. He knew that he was no match for Jiang Tian and didn't dare to go forward. I'll kill him. Boom, boom. The earth quaked and the mountains swayed. The stone golem god was like a small mountain as it charged forward. He was more than 10 meters tall and stood between the heavens and the earth. With every step he took, the ground cracked and collapsed, and the houses trembled. How can he be like this? Is he human? When Huang Linger saw this, her beautiful face turned pale and her heart skipped a beat. He is human. But he's already possessed. Jiang Tian shook his head and smiled wryly. He cultivates an earth element art, but unfortunately, he can't control the earth element true qi. His body was turned into a crystal and became like mud. There was a hint of mockery in his voice as he spoke calmly. Don't be fooled by his size. In truth, he's too big for his own good. His psychic energy can no longer condense and control the earth element true qi. His force field is constantly collapsing, so his body is constantly expanding and becoming contaminated with dirt. If nothing unexpected happens, his psychic energy will disappear within 10 years and he will perish along with his body. So that's how it is. Huang Linger was somewhat reassured. Jiang Tian held his hands behind his back as he looked at the charging stone man god. Clay doll, if you submit, I'll lend you a helping hand. Calm your mind and focus your mind to reconstruct your body. If you don't submit, I'll make sure you're finished. Madman, you're so rude. Once this god devours your psychic energy and body, I'll naturally reconstruct my body. The stone man god was furious, his voice like the rumbling of diamonds, ear-piercing and harsh. Rumble. A fist like a tank flew through the air, leaving behind afterimages as it hurtled toward Jiang Tian. You're courting death. Seeing this, Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with sharpness as he said with his divine sense, Linger, earth grab, and root. Huang Linger was wearing a cotton t-shirt, hot pants, and canvas boots, revealing her snow-white slender legs. She was also wearing a cute sun hat, looking like a backpacker who had come to the tropics for an adventure trip. She was overflowing with youth and vitality. But the moment she took a step forward, her aura immediately changed. She was like a goddess who controlled the cycle of life and death, exuding an ethereal, holy, and transcendent aura. Earth grab. With a soft cry, she pointed the heavenly origin's wooden staff at the stone golem god. Green light filled the air as dragon-like roots grew out of the stone man god's body, weaving into a net. What's this? The stone man god's body froze as a bad feeling welled up in his heart. Root. The ethereal voice spoke once more. In an instant, the tree roots were like giant leeches that could penetrate any hole they could find. They crawled through the cracks and dug into the stone golem god's organs. But heavens! Why is my psychic energy and chi being sucked away? The stone man god opened his mouth and screamed, his eyes filled with fear. He staggered as if he were drunk. In the next moment, he fell heavily to the ground with a bang like a tree that had been cut down. How is this possible? Not even the stone man god is a match. The green-scaled bird god and the others were dumbfounded, staring at Jiang Tian and Ling, in shock and fear. Root was one of the basic moves of the divine life and death art. It used earth to produce wood, constantly converting earth energy into wood energy. And the stone man god was relying on the earth energy to create a force field, barely maintaining his form and attack power. Huang Linger's move was like using a water pump to suck away the blood and energy of an ordinary person, perfectly countering the stone man god. Release me. I submit. I'm willing to be your servant. The stone golem god was terrified. He rolled and struggled on the ground as if he had been coiled by a viper. He screamed and begged for mercy. It's too late. I've already given you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Jiang Tian's eyes were indifferent. Cheng Yin. Huang Linger raised her eyebrows. Her left hand formed a seal, and the delicate heavenly source wooden stick pointed again. Large clouds of green energy began to emerge from the stone golem god's body like green clouds. They rapidly transformed into green pillars of chi that resembled tentacles and rushed into the heavenly source wooden staff. What sorcery is this? Let me go. The stone man god was terrified. His stone man physique did not even fear the bombardment of the British fleet's heavy cannons. His body could be reassembled after being shattered. But at this moment, it was as if the firewood under the cauldron had been removed, and it seemed as if it would completely vanish in the next moment. Brother Stone, I'm here to save you. The serpent finally arrived. It raised its head as if it were a human standing on two legs. The palm-sized scales on its body suddenly burst open, making a rustling sound. It opened its bloody mouth and bit at Jiang Tian and the stone man god. Its sharp fangs glowed with a chilling light. The force of its bite was so powerful that it could tear through steel. Its sharp fangs dripped with a viscous venom. It was so poisonous that a drop of it could kill a transcendent grandmaster. You're just a snake monster that hasn't evolved into a serpent. How dare you call yourself a dragon? Go to hell. In response, Jiang Tian's foot descended from the sky, piercing through the clouds as it stomped on the serpent's giant head. Chapter 585. Boom. Jiang Tian's initial success gung metal divine body was so powerful that he could crush the earth and destroy mountains with a stomp. Bang. The head of the Jiao serpent, which was the size of a car, fell heavily on the ground, shattering the rocks. Old dragon, I'm convinced. Spare me, the old dragon, and I'll be your pet. I'll be obedient and cute. The Jiao serpent god felt that his head would explode in the next moment. There was deep fear in his eyes as he spoke in human language. His serpent tail waved like a white flag as he slapped the ground. Old dragon, I admire the strong the most. Clearly, you're the one I've been looking for so many years. This is the first time I've seen such a powerful and handsome overlord since I was born. I, the old dragon, swear to the lamp that from now on, this is my master. No one can take him from me. He was immediately terrified. He flattered Jiang Tian incessantly, flattering him like a tide, desperately flattering Jiang Tian, without any integrity to speak of. Stinky worm, you're useless. We're gods. How can we lower our heads? The Qinlin divine bird roared angrily. Can't you see that old stone is about to die? They're too powerful. We're no match for them. The Jiao serpent god lay there lazily like the famous Guyu Lai. He picked his nose with his tail and said casually, Gods, you're in a good mood. Deity you seem to be in the zone. Don't you know what you are? You're just a birdman. If you want to fight, go ahead. The old dragon won't fight anyway. I can't wait to be loyal to such a master. The Qinlin divine bird was speechless. At this time, the stone man god's body had shrunk to the size of a human, but his body was still abnormally tall, more than 3 meters. His skin was very rough and there was a yellow aura around him. Huang Linger withdrew her technique. The stone man god stood up and bowed. He clasped his fists and said gratefully with tears in his eyes, "Thank you, goddess, for restraining the impure demonic qi in my body and allowing me to reform my body. Your subordinate, Shi Lei, swears loyalty to the goddess." Huang Linger said helplessly, "Jiangdan, I can't bear to kill him. Can you let him go too?" Seeing this, Jiang Tian could only shake his head helplessly. Huang Linger was still kind-hearted and did not want to kill people. 2-1, you can't vote even if you raise your hands. Birdman, why don't you submit as well? The flood dragon god stretched lazily. In fact, when the green-scaled bird god saw Huang Linger remove the impurities in Shirley's body, she was shocked and impressed. At this moment, when they heard this, they did not dare to hesitate. They also rushed to kneel down, lowered their heads, and cupped their fists. Your subordinate, Qing Linzi, is willing to follow and serve Grandmaster for the rest of my life. If you have any orders, I won't dare to disobey. Where are you from? Is it the ruins of immortality? Jiang Tian asked. Ruins of immortality? What's that? They were confused. Relax. Jiang Tian used his divine sense to search their minds with the soul-searching divine technique. Could it be that their memories have been sealed? Jiang Tian was slightly stunned. They indeed did not have any memories of the ruins of immortality. Their memories were from decades ago, but at that time, they were already in Duosoni, and their cultivation was comparable to their current state. They were abnormally powerful. Each of them had a very vague and chaotic memory in their minds. However, there seemed to be a Taoist seal blocking it. With Jiang Tian's current strength, he could not open it. Yes, this old dragon also feels that a memory is fading in and out. It seems that I have Alzheimer's. Strange. The serpent winked, like a human, and was very distressed. Guard this place. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion. Jiang Tian could only put this matter aside for now. With a flick of his sleeve, he sat on a huge rock next to the waterfall, took out the mature divine sword blood arrow orchid and various supplementary herbs, and began to refine. Your subordinates will do their best. Shi Lei and Qing Linzi hurriedly responded loudly. They immediately became the most loyal servants, occupying the peaks around the valley and staying vigilant. Jiangtun, Sidoni is too chaotic. We've already got a blood arrow orchid. Let's go back quickly, Huang Linger said. Jiang Tian shook his head slightly and a glint of determination flashed in his eyes. Since we're here, let's wait for the blood arrow orchid to mature and take it away. You need it, and so does your sister Qing. Master Taoist, you didn't listen to Uncle Jiang. You've already destroyed 3 lines of defense of the government army. When Jiang Tian was fighting with the 3 entities, little Arthur was carried on Zhang Qianlei's shoulder and was a bit worried. His Chinese was a bit shaky. Yes, Zhang Qianlei did not listen to Jiang Tian at all. He ran as fast as lightning and covered 100 kilometers in an hour. However, he didn't let go of any of the government's defensive lines that he encountered. He broke through all of them and killed until heads rolled. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled as he wiped out several groups of troops. Your Uncle Jiang is too soft and not domineering enough. How dare these fucking government army block my way? Do they have a death wish? Zhang Qianlei said fiercely. They're just doing a routine inspection. Little Arthur did not sympathize with the government army, but he thought Zhang Qianlei should listen to Jiang Tian. Humph, why are they inspecting me? Zhang Qianlei flew 100 meters in one step and said angrily, even old Jiang bowed to me when he saw me. Who's old Jiang? A bald guy who likes to keep a diary. But you promised Uncle Jiang that you wouldn't fight. What does he know? Zhang Qianlei said arrogantly, let me tell you, a man has to be domineering. Just because he looks at me in the crowd, I'll kill him. That's the only way people will be afraid of you. Do you understand? But you'll cause the government army to fight back. You've killed a few thousand of them. Little Arthur shuddered when he thought about the battle just now. This Tao Master Zhang was like a demon god, instantly breaking through line after line of defense. Everywhere he passed, lightning flashed and only ashes and corpses were left behind. Don't worry. Chitian Monkey will come to help us later. They've already sent the people of Jining Company to the refuge camp. But little Arthur wanted to say something but stopped. You're so stubborn. So much nonsense. Didn't you treat your Uncle Zhang's words like a god? Zhang Qianlei smacked his butt and snorted. Did your Uncle Jiang say that he wants me to intimidate that President Kuba? That's right, I'm just trying to intimidate him. These government army soldiers have committed all kinds of crimes. They deserve to be killed. Zhang Qianlei said with a smile. We've arrived at Redstone City. It's the second largest city in Sidoni, and it's also the only industrial city. Little Arthur sighed. He jumped down from Zhang Qianlei's back and obediently hid in a cave. There are 3,000 soldiers stationed here. Not bad, not bad. I want to kill to my heart's content. Zhang Qianlei streaked across the sky like a stream of light, crossing mountains and jungles as he charged toward the 88th Army. An hour later, Zhang Qianlei had killed thousands of people and destroyed all their weapons. He also pointed at the head of the mayor of Redstone City and left with little Arthur. All along the way, Zhang Qianlei carried out a bloodbath. It was practically as if he was chopping melons and vegetables, and he blasted apart army after army. Whether it was the government army, the resistance army, or the rebel army, they were all defeated. Finally, Sanwan was right in front of him. Soldiers swarmed in from all directions and entered the trenches and bunkers. They were on full alert and looked into the distance with fear in their eyes. In the sky, dozens of old-fashioned helicopters with all kinds of weapons were hovering. On the ground, tanks and howitzers were also gathering. I wonder if I'm more famous than that brat Jiang Tian on the international stage. Zhang Qianlei stood at the top of a mountain outside the city and looked down at the sparsely lit city. I'm afraid not. Japan is a big country, and Sidoni is a poor and backward small country in Africa. Zhang Qianlei was furious. He waved his hands and stomped his feet in anger. He grabbed his hair in pain and said, "Maybe the effect will be better if I kill the president." Late at night, San Juan, the president's residence. The president, General Kuba, was giving a speech to the camera. Sidoni only had one national television station. General Kuba's speech was the only television program, and it was broadcast 24 hours a day. The former captain of the Royal Navy's George Castle had a fierce face. He wore a bright red beret and a khaki military uniform. There were 7 large stars on his epaulets, golden tassels, and ribbons. His chest was full of medals of unknown origin. He looked very funny. The president sometimes raised his arms and shouted at the camera, sometimes smashed his fists fiercely, sometimes cried bitterly, and sometimes spoke softly. He was very infectious. It seemed that he was also a national leader at the level of an award-winning actor. After recording tomorrow's speech, the president, who was busy every day, puffed out his chest and walked quickly into a magnificent conference room to hold a war meeting. What surprised and angered the president was that, when he walked in, no one cared about him at all. Everyone was in a mess. Countless phones rang one after another, and no one could answer them. "My Sony boys, look what a mess you are in." The president suppressed his anger and used his middle finger to knock on the luxurious African mahogany desk imported from Italy. "Mr. President, bad news?" The Minister of Defense stood up and said anxiously, a strong person suddenly appeared. "Our Cass Lake camp has been occupied by them. They are pushing all the way from Cass Lake to the capital, San Juan." "Fuck!" The president was slightly stunned and cursed. He said angrily, "Is it that shameless drug addict Thorpe, or that son of a bitch Prince Bobby?" "No, it's Hua Xia people." "That's impossible. Hua Xia people have always been very honest, and I have been very kind to them. I have only killed them, but I have never tortured them. Mr. President, we are not mistaken. The 18th line of defense has been broken through by Huaxia people. 3,000 soldiers died, and the 199th Army was almost completely wiped out. The 15th line of defense has also collapsed. Lieutenant General Ron has been killed. The 12th line of defense has been broken through by the enemy. The 16th Armored Division has been wiped out. No one survived. The 8th line of defense has been broken through. The 8th Tank Division has been wiped out. No one survived. The enemy has now broken through Redstone City and is less than 30 kilometers away from the capital, San Juan. They will be there in an hour. Chapter 586. The bad news rang in the president's ears one by one. His face turned pale, and his shock gradually turned into anger. Are they mercenaries from Huaxia? How many of them are there? What weapons are they equipped with? Are they the rebels hired by the Crown Prince or Thorpe? President Kuba slammed the table angrily, like an angry African lion roaring. According to the witnesses, 2 people defeated the Cass Lake camp, but the one who advanced toward the capital was one person. The Minister of Defense's bloodshot eyes trembled slightly. Are you kidding? President Kuba was shocked at first, and he slammed the table angrily. Then he seemed to have thought of something and he was stunned. He murmured with fear in his eyes, "It can't be that kind of person, right?" The other person went to the Longevity tribe. He should be there to pick blood orchids. An intelligence officer said with an ashen face, "And we have contacted the chief of the Longevity tribe. They said that the gods of the Longevity tribe have terminated their cooperation with us. It must be that kind of person." President Kuba said angrily, "Connect me to the British MI6 immediately and report the information to them." The British MI6 has identified the 2 super soldiers in the photo. At this time, a general in a British Navy uniform rushed in. He scanned the room and said calmly, "They said that one of them is called Kong Taechu, the first on the Master Divine role in Huaxia and the third on the American CIA's power ranking. He once defeated the 28th Mixed Army Brigade in Japan alone." A stack of information was quickly distributed to President Kuba and the generals present. The other person should be the Taoist master Zhang Qianlei in Huaxia's Republic of China. He is a veteran immortal state warrior who once defeated the invasion of the Palace of Gods. His strength is on par with Kong Taechu. He is the one who attacked the capital. And the giant ape that appeared near the Gold Ning group is a super demon raised by Kong Taechu. It also participated in the battle of the 28th Mixed Army Brigade in Japan. Many of the high-ranking generals present were shocked, their hearts thumping as they looked at each other. They were a puppet regime supported by Britain and the European Union. Although he was holed up in Sidoni, a small place in the middle of nowhere, he was able to share some top-secret information from the British military. He had heard of Jiang Tian's name. Kong Taechu once dominated Japan, single-handedly defeating tens of thousands of soldiers and forcing the Prime Minister to lower his head. Even though Japan was defeated in World War II, it is still one of the most powerful countries in the world. How can the government army stop someone as strong as Kong Taechu with these weapons and equipment that were eliminated in World War II? Yeah, we can't. Perhaps we should inform their embassy and ask Huaxia's diplomats to mediate with Kong Taechu? Many of the generals hung their heads dejectedly, their faces as if they had lost their parents. Coward! President Kuba finished reading the information in a fleeting manner and roared angrily. They have already reached the capital. If we retreat, it will be the same as giving up our power to them. Pass down my order. The 28th Route Army, 19th Route Army, 7th Route Army, Sidoni's Air Force, and Tank Division outside the capital are to immediately form a defense line and stop Zhang Qianlei at all costs. Also, call in the Northern Army as reinforcements. I don't believe that an old man over 100 years old can withstand our firepower. He slammed the Desert Eagle made of gold on the table and shouted, "All the generals, it's time for the motherland and the people to test you. Go and supervise the battle immediately. Whoever dares to retreat will be a traitor to the people of Sidoni and will be punished by military law." Mr. President, The Minister of Defense and many generals were so scared that they trembled and saluted together. Mr. Wilson, those troops might not be able to fight against Zhang Qianlei and Kang Taichu. After sending these people out, the domineering President Kuba, the local tyrant of Sidoni who controlled hundreds of thousands of troops, was very respectful to the British naval officer. He bowed slightly and said with a humble smile, "I still hope that the gods of the Pantheon Temple can help." Wilson smiled modestly and said, "Don't worry, Mr. President. Sidoni has been Britain's territory since ancient times. No matter how strong Kang Taichu is, he shouldn't invade Sidoni, and he shouldn't covet the blood orchids. He has already broken the international treaty of the strong. The European Union and the Pantheon Temple are not weak and can be bullied. We are the victors of World War II. The gods are already on their way, and they will definitely help." "That's good. That's good." President Kuba nodded with joy on his face. He secretly let out a long sigh. The two old demons, Kang Taichu and Zhang Qianlei, had taken action. They were invincible all the way and even took over the Longevity tribe. This frightened President Kuba quite a bit. At this moment, on the southern front line of the capital, San Juan, Sidoni's government troops finally started shouting. A huge loudspeaker mounted on an armored vehicle emitted waves of sound waves. "Zhang Qianlei, put down your weapons and surrender. Don't make any unnecessary resistance. Otherwise, we will kill you immediately." They shouted in both English and Chinese. "They actually know my Taoist name. My name has even spread to Africa. I'm quite famous." Zhang Qianlei grinned and was very pleased with himself. However, the next moment, anger appeared on his face. He gritted his teeth and said, "Fuck you. You know my name, and you still dare to be so disrespectful. You're courting death. I'll go and kill them. What should I do?" Little Arthur was so scared that his legs trembled. There were more than 10,000 troops this time. There were also large howitzers, helicopters, fighter jets, and so on. Once they opened fire, he would have nowhere to hide. "Sigh, so troublesome. I shouldn't have brought you here. You're a burden." Zhang Qianlei was helpless. He took out a protective jade pendant and hung it around little Arthur's neck. Then, he let little Arthur ride on his neck and step into the air. This step was not more nor less. It was exactly 100 meters. He flew to 100 meters above the edge of the army formation. "Stop right now. Otherwise, we'll open fire immediately." The commander's voice was trembling from the loudspeaker. Many soldiers held the shafts of their guns tightly and looked at the mighty figure 100 meters in the air, trembling. They had heard some rumors a long time ago. Sidoni suddenly attacked two alien gods. One of them could slash a tank with a golden blade, and the other could control thunder and lightning. They didn't believe it at first, but at this moment, they couldn't help but believe it. They were real gods. Sidoni was originally extremely backward. There were many ghosts and gods and all kinds of beliefs, but they were all firm believers. Noisy. Zhang Qianlei cast a Dharma spell. A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky and directly blew the armored vehicle where the commander was to pieces. The commander was instantly killed. "Open fire." All the commanders roared in unison. Suddenly, thousands of soldiers fired at the same time. The bullets were like dense raindrops, covering Zhang Qianlei. There was no lack of fire interwoven by heavy machine guns and armor-piercing and incendiary bullets shot by sniper rifles. On the entire battlefield, thousands of soldiers fired at one person. That kind of power and lethality was unimaginable. The bullets were extremely dense, like a torrent of metal that went straight to the ninth heaven, strangling Zhang Qianlei. Even a tank could be blown to pieces and overturned. Zhang Qianlei only felt that his neck was hot. Little Arthur was so scared that he wet himself. He said angrily, "You useless little Arthur, you peed all over my neck." "That's so shocking." Little Arthur's face was full of disbelief and a trace of excitement. He clearly saw that when the bullets bombarded 3 meters away from Zhang Qianlei, they were immediately blocked by bright lightning and turned into copper droplets in an instant. Zhang Qianlei took a second step forward and crossed another 100 meters. He stomped his foot. A column of air descended from the sky, and a clear footprint suddenly appeared on a tank 100 meters below. The footprint was of normal size, indicating that Zhang Qianlei's aura did not leak out, and the footprint was getting deeper and deeper. Suddenly, the entire tank was torn apart like a firecracker. The wreckage was shot hundreds of meters away. Everywhere it passed, there were screams, and several nearby armored vehicles were overturned. Zhang Qianlei's foot did not stop. He took a third step. He casually pointed his finger and a lightning net descended from the sky, completely enveloping dozens of tanks in the tank battalion. Rumble! The shells in the tanks exploded. For a moment, the entire battlefield shook. The wreckage of the tanks whooshed dozens of meters high, and the billowing airwaves spread in all directions. No one survived within a mile. The fourth step. Zhang Qianlei casually clapped his hand. The turbulence in the air was like a tropical storm. The blades of the 3 helicopters in the air were shattered. After struggling for a while like headless flies, they plunged into the ground. Flames soared into the sky and black smoke billowed. Zhang Qianlei's temperament was fiery, explosive, and decisive. He could be called an old demon. With each step, he would either kill hundreds of people or destroy tanks and helicopters. And the way he killed was different every time. Some controlled thunder, some stomped on the ground with his Tao body, and some stirred up the energy of heaven and earth. Sky trampling 9 steps. Zhang Qianlei was unscathed. He broke through the steel defense line formed by tens of thousands of soldiers in the capital, San Juan, and swaggered into the city. An immortal! He must be a real immortal. That's right, he is the legendary god of thunder. Oh my god, I just fired at a real immortal. I am guilty. At this time, many soldiers, including some middle-level and upper-level officers, knelt on the ground and bowed to Zhang Qianlei's back. They trembled and shouted, "Hey, front line, report the battle situation immediately. Has the enemy been killed?" The Minister of Defense's voice came from the radio. "I'm sorry, Minister. We didn't do it because we met a real immortal." The commander of the 28th Army put down the walkie-talkie and kowtowed to Zhang Qianlei's back. "Immortal, please forgive my sins. I will serve you forever." In the crowd, only a blonde American woman in a camouflage uniform and a helmet was frantically pressing the shutter of her camera. Big news! Big news! It turns out that Kang Taichu is not the only immortal state warrior in Huaxia. There are more. If the news is released, the world will be shocked. Next year's Pulitzer Prize will be mine. Chapter 587. In the president's mansion, the Minister of Defense's hand trembled, and his phone fell on the table. He stood up stiffly, and his eyes were blank as he said in a trembling voice, "Mr. President, this is bad. Zhang Qianlei has broken through the defense line." How is this possible? President Kuba could not believe it. He slammed the conference table and roared angrily, "Less than 10 minutes have passed since the start of the battle." The commanders of the Minister of Defense shook their heads regretfully and said, "He's like a real god. Our army can't stop him." President Kuba slumped in his chair as the details of the battle were reported. "I've let down the 10 million citizens of Sidoni. I'm a sinner of history. Prepare the planes." The next moment he stood up and pointed at the Minister of Defense. "Now, I give Minister Kane full authority to take over Sidoni's affairs. I want to build a government in exile and seek help from England." This guy was also good at pushing the blame to others, and he was very good at running away. The Minister of Defense suddenly looked behind President Kuba with a strange expression. He said in a trembling voice, "Mr. President, I'm afraid your order is a little late." President Kuba turned around and saw a muscular man with black hair and yellow skin. He was dressed in strange green clothes. The man had his legs crossed and was sitting on the chair behind him. He had a cigar in his mouth that he had gotten from somewhere and was puffing out smoke. He was very arrogant. Next to him, a black child of 5 or 6 years old pointed at Zhang Qianlei and looked at the president with a trembling voice. The former Taoist master of the Republic of China, the sect master of the Taoist master sect at Dragon Tiger Mountain in Huaxia, a half-step immortal, the second most powerful person in Huaxia, second only to Kong Teichu. The handsome and peerless Master Zhang Qianlei greets the president. Poor little Arthur. He had been spanked 3 times in order to remember Zhang Qianlei's narcissistic and coquettish self-introduction. President Kuba staggered a few steps back as if he was avoiding a snake. He smiled and said, "Master Zhang, the master from Huaxia. From now on, you're Sidoni's Grand Master. What do you think?" Zhang Qianlei said lazily, "I want you to announce that the K and Longevity tribes in Coast Lake are now independent. The government army will never invade that place." Of course. President Kuba was overjoyed when he heard that, and he agreed readily. He didn't care about the bullshit Longevity tribe and the legendary blood orchid that could make people become immortals. A few monsters had appeared there decades ago. Whether it was the British colonial army or Sidoni's government forces, they had never been able to occupy it. Even without those dozens of square kilometers, he still had a vast territory of 640,000 square kilometers. Kuba, are you crazy? The Longevity tribe and blood orchid should belong to the United Kingdom and the European Union. British MI6 Special Envoy, Captain Wilson of the Royal Navy shouted in exasperation. "I want you to give the order to use the bombers to blow up the Coast Lake camp and the Longevity tribe. Kong Teichu and Huaxia must not be spared. Wilson, as you can see, if we don't agree, we will die." President Kuba said resentfully. "Huaxia is one of the strongest countries in the world. We can't afford to offend them." And they were Huaxia's super soldiers. Who knew if they represented Huaxia's official intentions? "I can't afford to offend him." Bang! Wilson suddenly pointed his finger. A blazing light appeared out of thin air and exploded President Kuba's head. Then he glanced at the stunned generals and said proudly, "I announce that from now on, I, British MI6 Special Envoy, Glorious Paladin under the Palace of Gods, Wilson, will be Sidoni's 8th president. Carry out the order." So he's a paladin. The generals were shocked and terrified. They stood there like wooden blocks. They did not know if they should carry out the order immediately or wait to see Zhang Qianlei's attitude. "Oh, I forgot. There's still an invader from Huaxia who hasn't been killed yet." Wilson walked toward Zhang Qianlei with large strides. He smiled proudly and said in Mandarin, "Zhang Qianlei, I know who you are, but aren't you afraid of the Palace of God's attack? They're already on their way. A paladin is nothing." Zhang Qianlei shook his head and said disdainfully, "If you know what's good for you, get lost quickly. Don't be a dog in the manger." "You're not leaving? Then I'll kill you. Let your ugly and depraved soul be cleansed." Wilson shouted coldly. He grabbed the cross in front of his chest and threw it toward Zhang Qianlei. Divine punishment, light thorn. A blazing, dazzling, and holy light pierced towards Zhang Qianlei like a sharp and heavy sword. "Looks like your authority is still not enough. Don't you know that I killed a paladin during the Republic of China?" Zhang Qianlei snorted and raised his hand to send a bolt of lightning over. "I'm a member of the Temple of Gods. How dare you?" The bolt of lightning in Wilson's eyes grew bigger and bigger. He screamed and was engulfed by the blazing lightning and turned into ashes. The high-ranking generals were confused and uneasy. President Kuba was killed by Wilson, and they were all dumbfounded. Wilson, who had just been promoted and had not held a ceremony, was also killed by that bolt of lightning. In just a few minutes, the ups and downs were too exciting. Their minds were in a mess. Zhang Qianlei scratched his head in distress and mumbled, "Jiangtun." He said that if they don't listen to me, I'll appoint a new leader. But he didn't say who it will be. Suddenly, his gaze fell on the shivering little Arthur. His face darkened, and he said slowly in Mandarin, "Little Arthur, from now on, you'll have to try to be a president." Little Arthur widened his eyes in disbelief. Too many things had happened in a day and a night. His mind was in a mess. "Heavenly Master, I won't be a president." Little Arthur's long eyelashes drooped. He did not dare to look at Zhang Qianlei. For as long as he could remember, he had been hunting, fishing, and picking fruits in his tribe. When he was older, he was sent to the capital to work. He had been working as a doorman, a male servant, a cook, and a follower. Those jobs had nothing to do with the president, who had to deal with a lot of things every day. From a little servant to Mr. President, this leap was a little too big, and it was easy to pull the egg. Being a president is much easier than catching fish. Even that loser who loves to write diaries can do it. You can do it too. Zhang Qianlei pressed his hands on little Arthur's shoulders, stared into his eyes, and said seriously, "Remember, your life only belongs to you. Just do what you want. I can write a diary, but this is also your Uncle Zhang's hope. Do you want to disappoint him?" Zhang Qianlei was a little impatient. He had already rolled up his sleeves and was ready to spank little Arthur. "I'm willing to listen to Mr. Jiang." Little Arthur nodded in confusion. "From now on, he will be the president." Zhang Qianlei looked at the generals and said. After one of the interpreters translated his words into English, many of the generals were in a difficult position and began to discuss among themselves. Zhang Qianlei was annoyed. He suddenly raised his voice and said, "What? You dare to disagree? Dear God, that's not what we mean." The translator, who was trembling with fear, said, "Little Arthur is obviously not 18 years old. He doesn't have the right to vote or be elected. They are in a difficult position. Then think of a way. In any case, we want him to be the president." Zhang Qianlei said stubbornly. At this time, the Minister of Defense pulled the translator and spoke in English for a while. The translator said, "There is a way. Sidonie is a constitutional monarchy. Whether it was during the British colonial period, the government army period, or the warlords period, there was always a king. He can't be the president, but he can be the king, and the king is not limited by age." However, Wang Chubo was still alive. And he is the leader of the rebel army. He looked like he was in a difficult position. He wanted to say something but hesitated. So what they mean is that little Arthur can't be the president because he is not the king's descendant? Zhang Qianlei frowned. According to the rules, this is the case. The translator said helplessly. It's not like the rules can't be changed. Zhang Qianlei was depressed. It seems that I have to discuss this matter with old Monster Jiang. That kid is better at scheming than me. Mr. Zhang, before we came, Uncle Jiang said that you should hurry back to Cass Lake Camp. Next to him, little Arthur had no interest in being the president or king. He was afraid that Zhang Qianlei would force him to do something beyond his ability, so he quickly reminded him. "Okay then, let's go back first." Zhang Qianlei scratched his head, stood up, and pointed at the Minister of Defense. "You'll be the acting president for now, but remember, don't touch Cass Lake and don't touch Huaxia people. Otherwise, I'll teach you a lesson. Kong Teichu and the others are too scary." One person defeated tens of thousands of troops. Although the government army's equipment is not as good, it is still a modern army. Kong Teichu and Zhang Qianlei have made such a big scene. I'm afraid Sidonie is going to be in chaos. When the commotion in San Juan gradually subsided, Marligan asked around for some information. He rubbed his chin, and a deep worry appeared on his face. "Boss, what's there to be afraid of? Isn't it a good time for us to make a fortune?" A few of his subordinates rubbed their hands together. "Stupid. This is not the same as a regular war." Marligan took a big gulp of rum, but his eyes were not drunk at all. He was abnormally sober and even showed a little fear. "I'm afraid this place will become the battlefield of the immortal state warriors. It's all because of the damn legend of Blood Orchid. The battlefield of the immortal state warriors." Several of his comrades were surprised, and their hearts trembled uncontrollably. "If the immortal state warriors start a war, we will be affected. Let's go, let's leave Sidonie immediately." Marligan made a prompt decision. He filled the shabby helicopter with fuel, packed up his belongings, and was about to leave this troublesome place. "Hey, Black Bear Marligan, my old friend, where are you going?" Suddenly, a joking voice came. At the entrance of the manor, a fully armed and majestic Russian man with gray hair appeared. "Ice Bear, why are you here?" Marligan's eyes turned, and he suddenly had a bad premonition. Chapter 588. Konstantin the Glacier Bear used to be an elite of the KGB, and now he was the leader of the famous Russian Glacier Bear mercenary group. Mulligan knew that the government forces were supported by the European Union and the United Kingdom. Thorpe was supported by America, and Prince Bobby's rebels were supported by Russia. But the Russian Glacier Bear had never appeared in Sidoni before. It seemed like the war had escalated. I heard that there were a few powerful people from Huaxia here. Do you know anything about them? Konstantin the Glacier Bear pulled a chair and sat down. He took off the sharp machete on his leg and picked his nails leisurely. Put away your bitch's dagger. Mulligan jumped down from the helicopter and roared in a thunderous voice. I don't know anything. Don't even think about getting any information from me. This is Sidoni, not the Caucasus Mountains or the Siberian ice fields. I'm not afraid of you. Calm down, my old friend. I'm not asking you on behalf of the Glacier Bear mercenary group. Let me tell you, there are a lot of powerful people coming. Konstantin smiled faintly and said jokingly, What kind of powerful people are you talking about? Do you think I, old man Mulligan, can be scared? Mulligan roared. Then, under Mulligan's shocked gaze, a middle-aged woman with a black hood walked in step by step. She had a cold aura unique to the Siberian highlands. Wherever she went, ice crystals would form on the ground, and snowflakes would fall from the sky. His hunting dog Jennifer was immediately frozen into an ice sculpture. The leader of the Frost Witch Society, Plehanova. Mulligan's expression changed drastically. He couldn't help but take a step back. His legs were trembling slightly. Then, before he could react, a large group of people walked in from behind. Mulligan knew some of these people, and some of them he didn't. But Mulligan was sure that each of them was a powerful person from the Dark World. They could shake the entire Dark World with a stomp of their feet. The Caucasus Grand Shaman, Lady Prophet. The leader of the Tombstone Assassin Organization, Grim Reaper. The founder of the Butterfly Skeleton, Lady Catherine. The powerful person on the Dark Ranking, Siberian Hammer, Ivan. Hundreds of people swarmed into Mulligan's manor. They were all famous existences in the Dark World. Some of their auras were as cold as the ice and snow of the Arctic, some were as heavy and condensed as the Caucasus Mountains, and some were as manic as erupting volcanoes. Almost all of them were powerful existences in Russia and Eastern Europe. Oh my God, these are the leaders of the underworld. There are 4 of them on the CIA's power rankings. Almost all the top experts in Russia and Eastern Europe have been dispatched. Mulligan's eyes were filled with fear, and cold sweat broke out. He was also a top expert in the field of international mercenaries, but compared to these super experts, he was like a little white rabbit in front of a lion. What made him even more uneasy was, after these experts arrived, they were not in a hurry to negotiate with him. Instead, they stood respectfully and quietly on both sides of the main road, as if they were waiting for some important figure to arrive. Who are you waiting for? It can't be that person, right? The more Mulligan thought about it, the more scared he became. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Sure enough, an old man with an abnormally large and tall body, wearing an old military uniform, walked in with a dignified aura. In his demonic red pupils, his gaze was unusually cold and ferocious. Like an eagle looking at a wolf, there seemed to be a torrential aura of blood rising and falling. So, one of the 3 giants on the CIA's power rankings, the Wolf King Alexander, who is now ranked 4th. When Mulligan saw him, his legs went weak and he almost knelt on the ground. The Wolf King Alexander, the chief instructor of the Russian winter soldiers, the spiritual leader, was even more powerful than Xiaobin. He was the peerless expert that the KGB and the Russian emperor had to rely on. But immediately after, another middle-aged bald man with an elegant temperament came in a wheelchair. One of the 5 giants of America's Blue Storm, Professor. Once ranked 2nd on the power rankings. Currently ranked 6th on the dark ranking, and he is the chief consultant of the CIA's power rankings. Mulligan felt that his head was about to explode. One had to know that America and Russia were both major countries in the world, and there had been many conflicts in history. In the era of the former Soviet Union, there was even an arms race and a Cold War. Alexander and Professor were the top experts of their respective countries. They had always been on guard against each other, secretly competing against each other. Legend had it that they had even fought against each other. Why were they suddenly together? And behind the two of them, the elites of the Winter Soldiers and Blue Storm were almost all mobilized. Maligan, I told you that there would be experts coming. You're going to tell me now. Constantine looked mockingly at the uneasy Maligan and snorted coldly. Don't kill me, I really don't know anything. Maligan stood there like a clay sculpture and said with a stiff voice. He knew that great trouble had arrived. If he revealed information about Kang Taechu, he would be obliterated by Jiang Tian. If he didn't say anything, how could these terrifying experts let him go? Perhaps I should tear you to pieces. Behind the Wolf King Alexander, a powerhouse roared. He stretched out his hand, which instantly turned into a large furry claw. Everyone, don't make things difficult for this poor child. But immediately after, a faint yet mighty voice was heard. It reverberated like the voice of a god, as if it carried the consciousness of the heavens. Dazzling holy light filled the air. A mighty old man wearing medieval armor, holding a golden scepter, and a laurel crown studded with precious gems strolled in. He was like a high and mighty god overlooking his own people, majestically and benevolently sweeping his gaze over everyone. He smiled and said, I already know who the expert who invaded Sidoni is. My old friend, we haven't seen each other for 30 years. Professor's expression changed drastically. He nodded slightly in greeting to this old man. The other experts' expressions also changed drastically. They were solemn and nervous as they bowed deeply to this oddly dressed old man. Alexander's expression changed drastically, but he also lowered his head silently to express the highest respect. Who is it? Who has such great authority to suppress the world's two greatest experts? Maligan's heart was beating wildly. He couldn't figure it out for a moment. Suddenly, his pupils shrank as he thought of a name that made his heart tremble. The former number one on the Dark World's strong ranking, the master of the Western Palace of Gods. Maligan was dumbfounded. His heart was beating wildly, almost bursting on the spot. Zeus, the number one main god of the Palace of Gods. The only saint-level expert in the West. He had power close to that of a god, and his strength was comparable to the legendary immortal Huaxia. Honorable Lord Zeus, did you come to Sidoni to help the government army unify Sidoni? The professor asked politely and cautiously with a smile on his face. Sidoni was the biggest warlord in the Three Roads. They each had their own supporters, and the government army's supporters were the European Union and the United Kingdom. Zeus hadn't made a move for decades. His appearance meant that the 12 main gods would definitely come out in full force. So, why did Zeus and the others come? To fight for the sovereignty of Sidoni or Blood Orchid? The political power struggle of a small country like Sidoni is like ants fighting for a grain of rice. Is it worth the attention of experts like us? So, what if our British Empire gave the control of Sidoni to Russia and the United States? But if we get the Blood Orchid and start the great journey of human evolution, maybe we can become real gods and look down on the world. Zeus laughed. He was heroic and mighty, and his domineering aura soared to the sky. He looked down on the world and swept through all directions. He was worthy of being the number one expert on the CIA's strong ranking for 20 years. Even if the younger generation surged and newcomers emerged one after another, no one could shake his position. So, Lord Zeus came for the Blood Orchid. Unfortunately, so did we. Wolf King Alexander's eyes flickered with an ominous glint. He took a step forward, and a surge of battle intent rose to the sky. Lord Wolf King, do you think only our three forces are fighting for the Blood Orchid? Even if the Palace of Gods withdraws now, do you think you have any hope of getting the Blood Orchid? Zeus shouted coldly. A bright lightning flashed in his eyes as if it was real. The monstrous aura suppressed Wolf King Alexander and forced him to take a step back. Wolf King, don't be impulsive. The professor calmly stopped the Wolf King and looked at Zeus with a warm smile. Mr. Zeus, who is the powerhouse that appeared 2 days ago? The British MI6 has received information that Kang Taechu and Zhang Qianlei have attacked the Changshu tribe and subdued the 3 strange gods. Zeus looked down at the professor and said coldly, "If you want to get the blood orchid, I'm afraid you have to defeat Kang Taechu and his henchmen first." Kang Taechu. As soon as these 3 words came out, it was as if there was magic. The whole place was dead silent. Everyone's face was filled with deep fear, and they did not dare to make a sound. "It's him. It's the Hua Xia kid who killed Xiao Bin and Andre. I'm going to tear him into pieces." Wolf King gritted his teeth and said, "The European Union has decided to give up fighting for Sidoni's regime and share such important information. They have already shown a lot of sincerity." Zeus said calmly, "You have to know that although Sidoni is backward, it is rich in mineral resources. It's equivalent to the value of Vale. And the other party is Kang Taechu. If I don't tell you in advance and you rush over, you will only have a 50% chance of winning. There's a greater possibility that you will return empty-handed. I want to exchange this for a chance to cooperate with you. The 3 powerful organizations will work together to kill Kang Taechu and share the blood orchid. If you are interested, then come find me at the San Juan International Hotel. I can give you a month to consider it." After Zeus left, the whole place fell into a strange silence. Everyone was silent for a long time before some experts could not help but break the silence in a low voice. "What should we do? Should we cooperate with the Pantheon? Kang Taechu is not easy to deal with. I think that if our 2 organizations work together, we should be able to kill Kang Taechu." Wolf King Alexander smiled proudly. "If Kang Taechu really comes, then we'll have to reformulate our strategy. We can't act rashly." The professor's expression was extremely solemn. He drove the intelligent wheelchair out and sighed leisurely. "I've been studying him since his debut. The more I study him, the more I realize how terrifying he is. I didn't expect to clash with him in the end. We need to mobilize more experts to strengthen our equipment and triple our combat power to have a chance of winning." Chapter 589. The Wolf King Alexander suppressed his anger, but he could only agree and follow them out. By the way, Mali Zhen once provided transportation support to Kang Taechu to prevent the news from leaking. "Kill him." The professor's cold voice sounded. To. The ice which Plehanova waved her hand. Numerous blue diamond-like icicles shot out like flowers scattered by a celestial maiden. Malijan's strong body, which was comparable to a physique grandmaster, was instantly penetrated. Blood gushed out of his wound and he fell to the ground. A few mercenaries were also penetrated by the icicles. They fell to the ground and died. With the protection of Qin Linzi, the Old Dragon, and Shirlei, as well as Huang Linger's company, Jiang Tian was very relieved. Under the blood orchid waterfall, he sat in a temporary thatched cottage. Jiang Tian immediately took out supplementary medicine from his storage ring and started to refine pills with the mature Immortal Ascension Blood Arrow Orchid and Orchid Sundae. The Immortal Ascension Blood Arrow Orchid had the reputation of being a foundation establishment herb. It was created by nature and contained abundant spirit qi. It could be consumed directly. However, since Jiang Tian was an expert in alchemy, he naturally wouldn't waste any spirit qi. He wanted to further condense and purify the medicine through refinement. 6 hours later, he refined a pill that was as red as a ruby. The pill was the size of a pigeon's egg and emitted a bright light. It was surrounded by dense spirit qi and a colorful mist. Once the pill was out, strange phenomena appeared. Within a meter of the pill, there were dragons, tigers, kirins, and phoenixes. Although it was only a small-scale phenomenon, it was still a phenomenon, and the pill was still a high-grade one. Returning Cauldron Heavenly Pill. The pill was like its name. Even if a cultivator had already stepped into the 9 heavens, they would still be able to improve further and touch the sky with their fingers. At the late stage of qi refinement, cultivation was more difficult than before. The difficulty of foundation establishment was even more difficult. However, this kind of medicinal pill was like a kind of extreme support. It allowed a cultivator to break through the clouds, carry the blue sky, and skyrocket, infinitely close to foundation establishment. In the past, on the cultivation continent, there was once a powerful person who wrote a poem praising the power of this pill. The heart refines qi and defends nature. Tidy up the genie to return to the center. He transformed into the 5-colored heavenly cauldron pill and flew up into the sky. Flying up to the sky, free and unfettered. The 8 luanas held the dragon-winged luan in their hands. Colorful rainbows interspersed with the luan, peeking into the 9 suns and the 6 underworlds. Turning back to laugh at the emperor for 10,000 years, Bai Liang's osmanthus guesthouse is empty. This pill was invented by that brat, immortal Emperor Binghua. Its effect is indeed extraordinary. Jiang Tian looked at the Guzhong cauldron heavenly pill with admiration in his eyes. Jiang Tian used his divine sense to transmit his voice. Ling, I've already refined the medicinal pills. Next, I'll go into seclusion. If I'm slow, I'll take 3 months, and if I'm quick, I'll be able to break out of seclusion in 1 month. Remember, no one is to disturb me. Understood. Huang Linger replied with her divine sense. The moment he swallowed the pill, boom, Jiang Tian's meridians boiled. Countless spiritual energy poured into his sea of qi like rivers flowing into the sea, causing the volume of his sea of qi to expand by 10 times in an instant. The spiritual energy was dense and boiling, restless like a tsunami sweeping through, like a volcanic eruption. In his sea of qi, strange phenomena appeared and changed in an instant. His sea of qi even had a feeling that it could not bear it and was about to explode. The Guizhong cauldron heavenly pill is best taken by someone at the 8th level of qi refinement. I'm only at the 6th level of qi refinement. Fortunately, my gung metal divine body is strong, otherwise, I might not be able to bear it. Jiang Tian had long been familiar with this feeling, so he was not surprised. He immediately immersed himself in cultivation. He concealed his spirit and qi, held his breath, and entered a meditative state. He operated the primal chaos art and began to transform the surging spiritual energy of the medicinal pills into gung metal true essence. However, when he began to refine the medicinal pills, all the pores on Jiang Tian's body opened up, making Jiang Tian feel as if he was flying and floating. It was very comfortable. Cultivation knew no time, but to Jiang Tian, who had a lifespan of 10,000 years, this feeling was still very enjoyable and satisfying for him. Time passed by minutes and seconds, but the outside world had already turned upside down. The invasion of the foreign race had destroyed the government forces in the capital, San Juan, giving the rebels and resistance forces a chance to take advantage of. The leader of the rebel forces, Wang Chubua, immediately led his troops north from the southwest with the support of the Russian Polar Bear mercenary group. They pushed all the way for 50 kilometers. Everywhere they passed, the flames of war continued and blood flowed like rivers. As for the leader of the resistance forces, Thorpe, with the support of the American arms dealers, killed his way north from the southeast. He was only 30 kilometers away from the capital. However, they did not disturb the Changsho tribe for the time being. This was because their masters, Blue Storm and Winter Soldier, were both accumulating strength. They wanted to finish the job in one fell swoop. However, they did not know that Jiang Tian was also rapidly breaking through. When he came out, his strength had increased 10-fold or even 100-fold. After Master Kong attacked the Changsho tribe, he hurriedly went into seclusion. Could he be injured? Lin Fengmian came to the bottom of the snow orchid waterfall and could not help but feel a little worried. The situation of the war had worsened. The government forces, the rebels, and the resistance forces were fighting fiercely. Who knew when they would turn around and attack the camp at Cass Lake? This old dragon was trampled so badly by it. How could he be injured? The giant trees shook, the mountain rocks creaked, and the reeds parted like the tide. The flood serpent Old Dragon slithered over and spoke human language. It called itself the Old Dragon, but it was speaking standard Huaxia language. Oh my God! Lin Fengmian was so scared that his eyes almost popped out. He threw a punch and jumped back more than 10 meters. Little white worm, do you want to give me a massage? Come, Come, this dragon will take you as my human pet. The Jiaoshi old dragon took the punch and chuckled as if nothing had happened. I am at the peak of the transcendent state. He is unharmed after a punch with all my strength. Oh my god, this flood serpent is too scary. Lin Fengmian was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. He staggered back and trembled all over. Huang Linger suddenly appeared and scolded gently, "Old dragon, don't joke with him. This is Master Kang's friend." But. The old dragon protested with tears running down his face. He is just a weak white worm. Why can he be Master Kang's friend? And I'm just a cute pet. Huh? What is this? Seeing the old dragon retreat into the deep pool, Lin Fengmian felt a bit relieved. Suddenly he looked up and was shocked. With Jiang Tian's thatched cottage as the center, a huge cyclone with a radius of 100 meters appeared out of nowhere. The spirit chi of heaven and earth was almost visible to the naked eye, and it turned into raindrops from time to time. The spirit chi within dozens of miles has been gathered by Kong Teichu. Suddenly, Zhang Qianlei flew over. His eyes were filled with amazement as he said in a deep voice, "After breaking through this time, he really left me far behind. Oh my god! Is he a mortal deity?" Lin Fengmian's eyes were full of admiration and shock. He's not a mortal deity, but he's even stronger than one. Zhang Qianlei knew that Jiang Tian had a completely different cultivation system. But he was sure of one thing. Jiang Tian had refined a mature immortal ascension blood arrow orchid. In addition to the heaven and earth spiritual energy within a radius of tens of miles, this kind of progress was unimaginable. He said enviously, "I'm afraid that when he breaks through, he will definitely be able to fight with Saint Zeus or even Yi Tianren. It's possible for him to be the best in the world." He can fight with Zeus and Yi Tianren? The best in the world? Lin Fengmian was shocked as if he had seen a ghost. Not bad, right? We can witness the birth of a mortal deity. Our journey in the world is not in vain. Looking at the cottage with surging spirit chi, Zhang Qianlei's face was full of anticipation. Although he couldn't go there, he wanted to. But this time, Jiang Tian was in seclusion. It seemed to be longer than expected. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. A week passed. During this period, Zhang Qianlei and Lin Fengmian brought little Arthur to observe every day, but Jiang Tian still showed no signs of coming out. Will something happen to Master Kong? Why hasn't there been any news after so long? Lin Fengmian was anxious. In the past few days, the rebel army and the Free Resistance Army had defeated the government army. The rebel army and the Free Resistance Army had reached some kind of compromise. Prince Wang Chibobi successfully ascended the throne and appointed Thorpe as the prime minister and formed a cabinet. Although Cass Lake was still very calm, it was too calm. It was so calm that it was a little strange. It made Lin Fengmian feel that the other party seemed to be brewing some kind of conspiracy. Zhang Qianlei said calmly, "Ha, little Lin, you're too naive. I cultivated in seclusion for decades and only took a step forward to reach the half-step mortal deity level. If Jiang Tian can break through to the mortal deity level in a month, he can be called a genius. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month. 1 month later, just when Zhang Qianlei and the others thought that the day would end as usual, suddenly, rumble, 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 as if tens of thousands of millstones were rolling together, rumbling came from the sky. Everyone's heart trembled as they looked up. The cyclone above the thatched cottage suddenly spun, expanded and expanded. It pushed in all directions, 200 meters, 300 meters, 1 kilometer, 5 kilometers, like a hurricane. Boom! Amidst the earth-shattering explosion, a dazzling golden light shot out from the roof of the thatched cottage and into the clouds, piercing through the entire cyclone. This golden light was as thick as a water tank and as heavy as a substance. It pierced through the clouds and reached a height of 1,000 meters. It was as if the great sage, heaven's equal, had swung the golden cudgel and instantly pierced through the sky. The golden light formed a mushroom top 1,000 meters in the sky. It was dazzling, blazing, and holy. It spread in all directions and dyed the entire cyclone a layer of magnificent golden yellow. From afar, it was majestic and shining like an emperor's crown. Condensing chi into clouds, 1,000 meters in the sky, a canopy like clouds. Seeing this, Zhang Qianlei's eyes burst out with a fascinated light. He was very excited. This is the symbol of a mortal deity. But, isn't it recorded in the ancient books that it's 100 meters in the sky? But why is Master Kang so long? I'm afraid it's 10 times more powerful than an ordinary mortal deity. Could it be that he has reached a higher level, a terrestrial golden deity? Lin Fengmian was dumbfounded and tongue-tied. Celestial Master Zhang, what are those? Huang Linger looked carefully and was shocked again. On the golden pillar, there were countless golden Taoist patterns and runes floating up and down, shining brightly. Chapter 590. Some of these runes and Dharma laws flew like phoenixes, some were as heavy as tortoises, some were as majestic as tortoises, and some were as mighty as azure dragons. Like a dragon, like a phoenix, like a crow, like a qilin, with iron hooks and silver strokes, it was dense and substantial. It was filled with an ancient, profound, and obscure aura, as if it had passed through thousands of years. It was overflowing with an ancient aura and carried the boundless aura of time. Dao. Dharma laws, Dharma laws. Jiang Tian only used a month to weave his own Dharma laws. He has become a real mortal deity. Zhang Qianlei was full of amazement. Even though he had been conceited all his life and was extremely talented. However, he had no choice but to admit that when compared to the might of the phenomenon caused by Jiang Tian's breakthrough, he was far too inferior. The Dharma laws, Dharma patterns, golden chi pillars and cyclones waited for a quarter of an hour before gradually dissipating. More than half of the spirit chi in the entire Blood Orchid waterfall and the surrounding 10 kilometers had been extracted. Within a month, it could condense into rain and flow like a waterfall. But now, only clouds and trickles were left. Even the remaining few blood orchids were a little dispirited and looked listless. Boom! There was a sound. The thatched hut exploded. The first thing everyone saw was a pair of deep eyes, like a deep black hole that could connect to the outer space. Lin Fengmian looked at it and felt as if he had fallen into it forever, so he quickly turned his head away. Jiang Tian, who was dressed in white, flew out and sighed leisurely. I've been cultivating for 3 years. Today, I've finally reached the 7th level of qi refinement and entered the late stage. This sigh was full of hardships and perseverance. Jiang Tian returned to Earth in March 2007, and now it was March 2010. It had already been 3 years. In the past 3 years, he had been fighting everywhere. It wasn't easy to enter the late stage of qi refinement in the Age of Doom where spirit qi was thin and resources were scarce. It was much faster than when he was in the outer space. This was because he was a celestial lord and had accumulated a lot of experience and divine powers in the past 10,000 years. If other cultivators were thrown on this dead planet with no spirit qi, they might not be able to reach the late stage of qi refinement in their lifetime. What a powerful immortal spirit qi! He is indeed comparable to a human immortal saint. Zhang Qianlei moved closer to Jiang Tian and sniffed hard. He had always been very arrogant and always put on a high and mighty attitude. But at this moment, he wanted nothing more than to pounce on Jiang Tian and suck him a few times. He couldn't control himself at all. It was no wonder that Zhang Qianlei was unable to control himself. There were a total of 9 levels of qi refinement. Stepping into the 7th level was the true late stage. This was also the most dangerous stage before the foundation establishment stage. Once one stepped into this stage, they wouldn't be far from the true foundation establishment stage. Only by stepping into the foundation establishment stage could one lay a good foundation. Only then could one truly begin the path of immortal cultivation and become a true immortal cultivator. As for those who had yet to reach the foundation establishment stage, they were still mortals, ants, and dust. They were not even cultivators. And when one reached this level of cultivation, the immortal qi was already dense, and there was an irresistible attraction. Human immortal? Saint, when we come out, I'll kill them for you to see. Jiang Tian smiled faintly, brimming with confidence. Zhang Qianlei could see that his energy and cultivation had increased, but he didn't see the phenomenal success of his gung metal divine body. Now, he could form the gung metal armor, which increased his defense power by 10 times, and his control of metal elements was also more powerful. He wouldn't be able to forcefully change the trajectory of a few cannonballs like in Japan, which would cause damage to his energy reserve. Everything was as easy as moving his arms. Jiangtian, you're finally out. Huang Linger's face was full of joy. When the news spread to the K tribe and the Cass Lake camp, everyone cheered. Needless to say, at the Cass Lake camp, the Chinese who were rescued to the camp heard that a martial arts master had come to Huaxia to lead them to kill the rebel government forces and save them. They were all grateful and looked forward to seeing him. In fact, the people of the K tribe had been hiding in a few shady caves, and most of them had escaped the massacre of the warlords. But now, the Changshu tribe came to apologize and said that they had received an oracle from Huaxia's Master Kong and would never bother them again. The people of the K tribe found it unbelievable, because they had seen with their own eyes how powerful Shirlei, the old dragon, and Qing Linzi were. But now, the three gods had become Jiang Tian's slaves, which showed that Jiang Tian was the real god. God is out. Now, after hearing the news that Jiang Tian had come out, the backbone of the tribes immediately came to worship Jiang Tian with tropical fruits. The chief of the K tribe was a skinny old man. But he was hale and hearty, and his eyes were shining. He wore a striped bedsheet and a pair of glasses, which made him look like Mahatma Gandhi. With the support of little Arthur, the old man came before Jiang Tian and kowtowed deeply. He put his palms together and looked at Jiang Tian with reverence in his eyes. He then mumbled a lot of words in the native language. Little Arthur translated, "The chief is thanking you for protecting the K tribe. From now on, the whole tribe will worship and pray to you as a god. And we invite you to join us for dinner." Okay. Jiang Tian didn't want to pay attention to them, but seeing Huang Linger's eagerness, he gladly agreed. Zhu Jiangchao said, "Why don't we call the Huaxia people of the Golden Ning group? They also miss you." Jiang Tian also didn't mind and nodded his head. The old chief of the K tribe was immediately excited. He stood on the rock and said a lot of words. The people of the K tribe were immediately excited. They hurriedly ran to the K tribe to prepare food and wine. And Jiang Tian, Huang Linger, and the others, accompanied by the chief of the K tribe, slowly walked to the K tribe. Along the way, the atmosphere was very harmonious. Little Arthur followed closely behind Jiang Tian and dutifully translated. On the way, a group of monkeys climbed out of the forest. When they saw Jiang Tian and the others, they immediately roared angrily and bared their teeth. "These monkeys don't seem to be friendly to us," Huang Linger said thoughtfully. Yuan Kersen covered her mouth and laughed. "Miss Huang, you will know the reason later." Listening to the introduction of the K tribe's chief, they walked for an hour and arrived at the K tribe. The K tribe occupied a large area by the Cass Lake, 8 to 9 kilometers in radius, with 4 to 5 villages scattered around. Jiang Tian came to the largest village, but the buildings here were much more primitive than the Changshu tribe. The round houses were built with pebbles and red soil, covered with banana leaves and grass, and the better ones had iron roofs. The red road was very muddy. There were some chickens foraging for food and hunting dogs running around. Although the living environment was bad, the scenery was beautiful. The night sky of Africa was almost transparent. It was like a sapphire sprinkled with gold and silver powder, and the stars in the sky seemed to be within reach. The Cass Lake in the distance reflected the moonlight and the stars in the sky. In the dense forest, the chirping of insects and birds could be heard. The night in Africa was very beautiful. The roads are crisscrossing, and the chickens and dogs are chatting. This is really a paradise on earth. Lin Fengmian looked around and sighed leisurely. "Paradise my ass, this is hell on earth." Zhang Qianlei glared and said angrily. Since he came to Sidoni, he had seen too many ugly things. The government controlled the warlords, and the warlords slaughtered civilians, carried out genocide policies, burned and robbed everywhere, and there were diseases and plagues everywhere. This made him hate the imperialists, the government, and the warlords. Celestial Master Zhang is right. It's better to be a dog in peace than a man in chaos. Lin Fengmian quickly smiled. When they came to the square in the middle of the village, they saw a group of K-tribe people dancing around a bonfire. There were also people beating African drums. Is there a festival today? Huang Linger asked. The people of Africa are naturally optimistic. As long as there is a bonfire, they can sing and dance. They dance almost every day. Yuan Kursen explained, but Master Kong is here today, so there are more of them. Jiang Tian walked to the square, and little Arthur followed closely behind. He was like a competent follower of Jiang Tian. The chief shouted loudly. Suddenly, everyone stopped dancing and ran to Jiang Tian. They all kowtowed and prayed in their native language. Their eyes were full of fear, respect, and gratitude. There was even a sense of holiness. I'm still far from being a real god. Jiang Tian was helpless, but he could only let it be. After the chief spoke, the black people became lively again. They ran into the mud houses and took out simple black pottery jars. The old African women took out all kinds of food, and the children and hounds ran around excitedly. Several respected priests and the like, holding crutches, warmly invited Jiang Tian to take a seat. Jiang Tian found that these black people were actually more civilized than he had imagined. Except for some old people who were still wrapped in sheets and wrapped in banana leaves, most of the young people were wearing clothes made in Huaxia. There were all kinds of clothes, most of them were colorful fiber products. Several trendy black youths were wearing shirts with the words, Meteor Garden, printed on them. For beautiful Asian boys were posing on them. It turned out that those outdated clothes were dumped here. When the backbone of the medical team and the Chinese refugees arrived, a warm and grand banquet began. The black people and Zhu Jiangchao of the medical team knew each other. When they saw them coming, they immediately pulled them around the bonfire and danced a passionate African dance called the head dance. The strong African man quickly beat the African war drum and wildly brandished his spear. His whole body shook rhythmically as he made all kinds of assassination postures. His mouth let out a roar. Huang Linger noticed that the leader of the soldiers seemed to be holding a real head. Several black African women walked to Jiang Tian, knelt down, and respectfully presented a clay jar. Chapter 591. The clay jug was very unique. It was flat, round, and had 2 ears. It could be tied with a string and used as a water jug. The chief and the priest raised their glasses and bowed deeply to Jiang Tian with tears in their eyes. They raised the jug and said something excitedly. Little Arthur explained with red eyes. Over the years, the K tribe was captured by the Changsho tribe, and 500 people were killed by the warlords. Now the population is only half of the original. They are thanking you for protecting the bloodline of our people. Let me invite you to drink. Ha, I didn't do anything. It was hard for Jiang Tian to refuse such kindness. He raised the wine pot and touched his lips lightly. Then he picked up the python meat and took 2 bites. It tasted similar to fish, but it was very chewy. Zhang Qianlei was proud, as if he had found the glory of the Taoist master of the Republic of China. He laughed and said, "Don't laugh." He picked up the jug and gulped it down. After drinking, he shook his head and commented, "Well, sour and sweet, very sweet, but the alcohol content is a bit low, similar to rice wine. It should be a kind of fruit wine." Yuan Kursen, who was watching the dance, suddenly turned her head and asked, "Old immortal Zhang, did you drink it?" This title made Zhang Qianlei very happy. He nodded and said with a generous smile, "When in Rome, do as the Romans do. I'm not a person who lives in the clouds, so I have to be down to earth. Don't say, the taste is pretty good." Seeing Yuan Kursen's dumbfounded look, Zhang Qianlei asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing as long as old immortal Zhang likes it." Yuan Kursen hesitated. "What the hell is going on? Hurry up and say it." Zhang Qianlei asked anxiously. "Nothing, it's just that their brewing process is different from our country's wine." "How is it different?" "They first pick wild grapes, then chew them and spit them into the jug, where they naturally ferment. I used to drink a lot, but after seeing their brewing process, I stopped drinking." "Ouch, Mr. Zhang, where are you going? Don't vomit, don't laugh. Zhang Qianlei vomited so much that his bile almost came out. He didn't dare to drink this African wine anymore. Fortunately, there was still a lot of beer and red wine in the Cass Lake Refuge camp. They also brought a few boxes over for everyone to enjoy. The African people seemed to like the foreign wine more. After drinking it, they became even more excited. Dishes were served one after another. Then, some African dishes were served. The so-called African dishes were all roasted monkeys, roasted pythons, roasted lizards, fried grasshoppers, caterpillars, and so on. Every dish was challenging everyone's tolerance. This was especially true for the famous roasted monkey. In everyone's eyes, it was no different from eating a human. The monkey's head was chopped off from its neck, and its face was still filled with fear and pain before its death. It was thrown into the fire and roasted until it was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. The black people held the ferocious monkey head and tore it apart. Their saliva splattered everywhere, and they even reached into the head to dig out the tofu pudding to eat. Black men are still the best. Zhang Qianlei sighed and shook his head. The little monkey, heaven's equal, was crying bitterly at the side, mourning for its own kind. Luckily, the kayaks knew that he was Jiang Tian's pet, so they didn't try to chop him up. No wonder those monkeys hate the tribesmen so much. They bare their fangs when they see people. Huang Linger was so frightened that she almost vomited. Fortunately, there were some regular foods that the women could eat, such as bananas, roasted potatoes, roasted corn, grilled fish, and river shrimp. Cass Lake was rich in aquatic products. The black people were good at swimming and fishing, so there was no shortage of meat. If there was no war and no warlords, this place would really be a paradise on earth. But what surprised Jiang Tian was that little Arthur didn't eat the roasted monkey. But after thinking about it, he understood. He used to work in the capital, San Juan. After all, he came into contact with some civilized society. They chatted on the way. Little Arthur had a rich experience. He used to be a serf in a white plantation, and he also worked as a doorman at the San Juan International Hotel. He was fluent in English, Portuguese, and a little Chinese. Of course, he only knew some simple words. He couldn't understand too much. The black people were forthright and generous. This feast almost finished all the food they had in the past few days. The black men who drank until their stomachs were round were swaying. They hugged the black girls who had been flirting with each other and went to the wilderness to applaud for love. Master Kong, these Africans are actually very friendly and cute. After interacting with them for a long time, people become simple. Zhu Jiangchao sat down behind Jiang Tian and raised his glass with a smile. Jiang Tian clinked glasses with him, took a sip of beer, and smiled, but they also have shortcomings, right? Of course. Zhu Jiangchao smiled. They are very lazy. Probably this is the common characteristic of tropical people. They are rich in resources. They don't need to develop technology, they don't need to work hard, and they can eat until their stomachs are round. Lu Quan nodded. Yes, this is the bad habit of the black people. Our Golden Neng group employed them before. When they got the salary, they immediately disappeared. When they finished spending the money, they came back to make money. Most of them just don't work. Other than hunting, drinking, and sleeping, they never take care of their children and wives. In fact, more than half of the work in the tribe is basically maintained by women. Jiang Tian shook his head and said, I don't agree with the bad habit of the ethnic group. It's also because of poor education. There are many outstanding black people, such as Martin Luther King and so on. You see, little Arthur is very hardworking. It's because he has seen the world outside. Yes. Grandmaster Jiang's words make sense. Jiang Tian casually said, but Luqua's face was filled with nervousness as he nodded repeatedly. Jiang Tian suddenly lost interest. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. How can you talk when you are so nervous? However, Jiang Tian also understood. The journey of cultivation was such a lonely journey. The higher you go, the colder it is, and the fewer friends and companions you have. In the 3 years since he returned, only Zhang Qianlei and Yi Zhantian could make friends on equal terms. At this time, little Arthur ran over and snuggled up to Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian patted his head. Little Arthur said seriously, "Sir, I want to give you something." "What is it?" Little Arthur took a simple ivory pendant from his neck and hung it on Jiang Tian's neck. Yuan Kursen smiled and said, "Mr. Jiang, this is the amulet of the K tribe. They have been carrying it since they were born, and they regard it as their own life. If he gives it to you, it is equivalent to giving you the blessing of Mother Earth. You must take it seriously." Looking at little Arthur's clear eyes, Jiang Tian felt warm in his heart. He solemnly shook hands with him and said, "Thank you." Little Arthur ran to play with his friends again. Yuan Kursen said, "He is very pitiful. His parents have died in the battle to protect the tribe. Now he is a child without parents. He needs a father." Jiang Tian knew that Yuan Kursen wanted Jiang Tian to take the child away and adopt him. But he didn't answer. There were so many orphan children here. How could he save them? At this time, Zhu Jiangchao's walkie-talkie suddenly rang. He suddenly became nervous and said, "Master Kong, the army is coming. The new government army has surrounded the Kos Lake camp, the Changsho tribe, and the K tribe. There are tens of thousands of soldiers." Jiang Tian frowned and looked at Zhang Qianlei. "Brother Zhang, didn't you warn them? This is the new government army. Master Zhang defeated the old government army. They probably don't know how strong you are." Zhu Jiangchao briefly explained the war between the warlords and the change of regime. "Fuck them. I'll kill them." Zhang Qianlei jumped up and was about to attack the enemy. "Don't panic." Jiang Tian waved his hand and stood up. "They haven't fired a shot yet. It is very likely that they are negotiating. Let's wait and see. Master Kong is really smart." At this time, a high-pitched voice like a wolf's howl was heard. Under the bewildered gazes of the crowd, an old man wearing an old Soviet military uniform, with an unusually tall stature of at least 2.34 meters, walked over with a majestic gait. The chief instructor of the Russian winter soldiers, Wolf King Alexander. Seeing this, Lin Fengmian was shocked as if he had seen a ghost. As the most powerful overlord in Russia, his photo and appearance had almost been spread throughout the world of overlords. Seeing his arrival, Lin Fengmian suddenly felt uneasy. Wolf King Alexander and Xiaobin were best friends. It was Xiaobin who healed the relationship between the Russian military and the moon-worshipping werewolves and led some werewolves to join the winter soldiers. Now he had left the North Pole camp and appeared in Sidoni. Was it for revenge? Behind him were many overlords from the Winter Soldier organization. They were all armed to the teeth. "You are Alexander. It seems that what will come will come. I knew that there would be a battle between us." Jiang Tian looked at Wolf King with interest. From the outside, his face was red and he looked mighty, no different from an ordinary person, but his body hair was abnormally thick and he was also very tall and majestic. But the essence blood in his body was boiling and burning, containing a violent power like a volcanic eruption. In terms of strength and physical strength, he was far stronger than any overlord he had met before. Even Genichi Miyamoto, who had broken through in the battle, or by Tianlei and his wife, were inferior in this aspect. "Master Kong, this old man has long heard of your name. I heard that you have defeated the government army in Sidoni and helped His Highness Bobby a lot. Now, an independent new government has been established. The war is also over. This old man would like to express his gratitude to you on his behalf." Alexander was like an old gentleman, bowing politely and speaking Chinese very skillfully. "Thank you." Jiang Tian's face was full of mockery. He snorted coldly and questioned, sending thousands of soldiers to surround the K tribe, the Changsho tribe, and the Chinese refuge camp. "Is this your way of thanking me? If you want to fight, then let's fight. No need to talk nonsense." As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere became solemn as if the temperature had suddenly dropped. The people of the tribe sensed the dangerous aura and retreated far away, leaving a battlefield. All the members of the winter soldiers were on guard and ready to fight. A battle was about to break out. Chapter 592. I don't mean any disrespect to you. In fact, I've been paying attention to Master Kong for a long time. Alisanda's eyes flickered with the vicissitudes of time. He sighed and said, "Since Master Kong debuted, he has been almost invincible. He has swept across Asia and has never been defeated. He is indeed the most powerful man in Huaxia. He is comparable to my old friend Yi Tianren." "You've seen Yi Tianren?" Lin Fengmian exclaimed. Yi Tianren was more than 100 years old, a few years older than Zhang Qianlei. Alisanda, on the other hand, was healthy and ruddy. He looked to be in his 50s. "Of course, I participated in both World War I and World War II. After World War II, the era of peace came. I traveled the world and met Yi Tianren once. We exchanged martial arts." Alisanda sighed and said, "At first, I thought you were Yi Tianren's successor. However, after seeing you today, I realized that your auras are completely different. I have never smelled your aura on a human before. It's like a black hole in the depths of the universe. It's deep, mysterious, profound, and obscure. It's even older and more powerful than Mr. Yez. It seems that there are people like you in the ancient Eastern legends, but that's just a myth. I can't believe that an expert like you will appear in the world again." Lin Fengmian was shocked again. This old guy had lived for so long. He was really an old monster. "Alright, Alisanda, since you recognize me, you should withdraw your army." Jiang Tian was calm and relaxed as he lazily said, "I don't want to add any more killing. I know that in fact, what bullshit Prince Wang Chu and what new government army are just puppets you support. Master Kong, please pay attention. This is the territory of Sidoni, which is protected by Russia." Alisanda said with a cold gaze, "I know that you have already picked a blood orchid. Out of respect for you, I will allow you to leave this blood orchid safely, but from now on, you can't step into Sidoni. You have no right to touch it." "Alexander, did you drink too much vodka to say such silly things?" Jiang Tian flicked his sleeves disdainfully. "Do you think it's still the 19th century? Controlling the political power of other countries at the drop of a hat? Using strong ships and cannons to open the gates of other countries and colonize other countries?" Jiang Tian's words were loud and clear, making the blood of the people around him boil. "The land under your feet belongs only to the people of Sidoni, not to the puppet government, not to the European Union, not to the United States, and not to Russia. The long 10 million years don't belong to you, and the next 10,000 years don't belong to you either. Your era has come to an end. Is Master Kong not planning to leave? So what if I don't leave? Then I'm afraid a brutal battle is unavoidable." Alisanda's face suddenly turned cold, and a fierce killing intent surged out from him. "Do you think a beast like you, who has just learned to walk upright, is my opponent? I can kill you with one slap." Jiang Tian showed a trace of mockery and said leisurely, "If there were strong people from the dark world here, they would definitely think that Jiang Tian was talking nonsense. Wolf King Alexander's status in Russia was like Yi Tianren's in Huaxia. He was on equal footing with the commander of the Russian Northern Army and could drink and chat happily with the Russian emperor. Except for some old monsters who lived in seclusion, he was the strongest person in Russia, and no one could surpass him. From the current battle results, Jiang Tian's cultivation should be about the same as his, but Jiang Tian said that he could kill him with one slap. This was too arrogant. Hearing this, Lin Fengmian was speechless. Master Kong was too domineering, directly calling Alexander a beast. This was a slap in the face. "Master Kong, I know you are very strong, but you are not too arrogant, are you?" Alexander was furious. There was a sharp murderous intent in his demonic red pupils, like the tip of a needle, and he shouted angrily. Even if Yi Tianren was here, he would not dare to say such arrogant words. He immediately wanted to attack Jiang Tian. "Mr. Alexander, this matter can still be discussed." A bald middle-aged man came in a wheelchair. This person was dressed in a suit and had an elegant temperament, like a famous business professor. Only a pair of blue eyes shone brightly, as bright and deep as the stars. Blue Storm? The strong person who was once ranked second on the power rankings, Professor. Seeing this, Lin Fengmian was shocked again, and cold sweat broke out. Behind the professor, the American Blue Storm experts were gathered. Green Demon, Golden Armor General, Sea Lady, and more than 20 X and S-class mutants. Every one of them was a super warlord, comparable to the combat strength of a regiment. Their aura was powerful, and their killing intent soared. Alexander and the professor's strength was comparable to or even stronger than Miyamoto Genichi, and was on par with Zhang Qianlei. What was more terrifying was that the forces under their banner were all out. With such a luxurious lineup, even a human immortal sage would have to avoid and treat it with caution. At this time, the professor no longer had his usual elegance and elegance. He laughed sinisterly. Master Kong, don't you see that the two tribes, especially the Chinese refugee camp at Cass Lake, have been surrounded by the new government forces? If you don't leave and give up on the Blood Orchid, perhaps we can only kill those Chinese. What? Blue Storm wants to join forces with the Winter Soldiers? Hearing this, Lin Fengmian could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Jiang Tian should be able to win against Wolf King Alexander alone. Coupled with the many powerful generals of the Winter Soldiers, it was a little difficult. But now with the addition of Blue Storm, there was almost no chance of winning. One had to know that the Winter Soldiers was in Russia, and Blue Storm was in America. It was like the Long Formation was in Huaxia, and the Cherry Blossom Festival was in Japan. Yes, this kind of competition between super warrior organizations was no longer a competition of the strength of the members, but a competition of the overall national strength. It was supported by the strength of the entire country, with countless scientific research and military forces pouring in. Compared to the Cherry Blossom Festival, Russia and America had more support and investment in their powerful organizations. They were equipped with the most advanced weapons, and the strength of these two organizations far exceeded that of the Cherry Blossom Festival. Is this the style of America, which always talks about human rights and democracy? Jiang Tian looked at the professor mockingly and said coldly, "You slaughtered unarmed and innocent civilians. Do you have any shame?" Master Kong, this is also a difficult decision for us. We have no choice. A trace of helplessness appeared on the professor's face as he shook his head and sighed. There was a simultaneous interpretation system on his wheelchair, and an electronic voice in Chinese immediately came out. It was very dry and cold. This world needs balance. It's like there are several countries in the world with nuclear weapons. Only by deterring each other can a balance be maintained and a rare peace be maintained. And the current situation is that you are the most powerful person in the world. You are an invincible and unstoppable person. It's like you are the only one in the world who has nuclear weapons. This has broken the delicate balance. If you are allowed to grow stronger and develop, you will eventually enslave the whole world. Jiang Tian shook his head and chuckled. He said disdainfully, "In my opinion, you are just a group of weak insects. What's the point of enslaving you? I have never thought of enslaving you. Master Kong, we don't have to be enemies with you." The professor said earnestly, "We just want to get the Blood Orchid and cultivate a powerful person like you. Only then can we reach a new balance and rest assured." "What Blood Orchid? How do you know its effect?" Jiang Tian shook his head disdainfully and said, "Even if I give you 10,000 Blood Orchids and 500 years, you won't be able to cultivate a powerful person like me." Jiang Tian was not exaggerating. In his previous life, after he reached the soul formation stage, he had crossed the void and returned to Earth. But even after hundreds of years, the science and technology on Earth had flourished, but the mysteries of the human body had still not been solved. The potential of the human body had not been stimulated, and it could not even eliminate diseases and increase longevity. Kong Teichu, you won't let me? Wolf King Alexander was furious. He waved his hand and ordered, "New government army, flatten the Cass Lake camp." Huang Linger was shocked. Her beautiful face turned pale as she scolded, "Your Excellency Wolf King, you are one of the strongest people in the world, but you ordered the massacre of unarmed and innocent civilians. Are you human? Shame on you." Next will be the Longevity tribe and the K tribe. Alexander snorted. The professor seemed to be a bit reluctant, but thinking of the Pentagon's order, he could only shake his head and sigh. The people behind Jiang Tian were shocked and angry. Alexander's move was vicious. No matter how powerful Jiang Tian was, it was impossible for him to kill thousands of soldiers in a second. Even Jiang Tian took more than 10 minutes to destroy the old government army in Cass Lake. Even Zhang Qianlei took a lot of time to cross the old government army's defense line outside San Juan City. And it would only take a few minutes for the new government army equipped with artillery and bombers to raze the entire Cass Lake camp to the ground. The hundreds of innocent Chinese stationed there waiting for Hua Xia's warships to rescue them would also die an unnatural death. This was forcing Jiang Tian to his death. Only by giving up all the blood orchids could he save the lives of the Chinese. Are you forcing me to use my ultimate move? Fine, I'll show you what I, Kang Teichu, can do. Jiang Tian snorted as a strange golden light flashed across his forehead. In an instant, all the members of the Winter Soldiers and Blue Storm tensed up, thinking that Jiang Tian was going to make a move. But to their surprise, Jiang Tian stood there motionlessly with a faint smile on his face. What the hell is this kid doing? Everyone was puzzled. But at this moment, boom, boom, boom. In the area of the Cass Lake Chinese refuge camp, flames soared into the sky and the earth shook. The sound of artillery bombardment and dense gunfire could be heard. Has the fire started? Alexander's eyes flashed with a cold light as he sneered. Master Kang, although you have the ultimate skill and are undefeated in 10,000 battles, you can't stop more than 200 of your compatriots from being killed. How do you feel now? Alexander, you're wrong. No one in this world can threaten me. Jiang Tian was calm and composed as he looked at the Wolf King with ridicule. Hearing Jiang Tian's words, Alexander's heart was filled with uneasiness and confusion, as if he was facing a great enemy. It seemed that something was wrong. Chapter 593. However, the Wolf King changed his mind. Tens of thousands of new government elites had surrounded the Cass Lake Chinese refugee camp. Bombers, tanks, and cannons were all deployed. Under such circumstances, how could Jiang Tian turn the tables? He should be deliberately mystifying things. Alessandra thought with disdain. What did you say? On the side, the information officer pressed on the earpiece. Suddenly, his face changed drastically as he exclaimed. Prince Thorpe and Prince Bobby ordered their troops to fire at the Bear mercenaries. The Bear Constantine was killed, and there were many casualties. The entire army was almost wiped out. What did you say? Thorpe and Bobby actually dared to attack the Bear mercenaries. Do they want me to tear them apart and eat them? Alexander did not dare to believe it at first, but then he angrily shouted. The Bear Mercenaries was an international mercenary organization with retired Russian soldiers as the main members. There were also some Eastern Europeans and Central Asians. Many of them were ace soldiers from the KGB and the National Security Agency. They had all been through war, and their professionalism was high. Their organization was tight, and their actions were swift. In the international mercenary world, they were very famous, second only to the famous Blackwater Security Company in South Africa. Although they were an independent mercenary organization, they had always been under the guidance of the KGB. They were secretly controlled by the KGB to do things that the military could not do. It must be known that in modern warfare, the armies of various countries could not casually kill civilians. Otherwise, they would be strongly condemned by the international community. Furthermore, the military could not casually enter other countries as it went against international law. However, military and security companies, which were commonly known as mercenaries, were not restricted by these two. They could shoot civilians, torture prisoners of war, and even commit genocide and massacres. They could do things that the hypocritical politicians wanted to do but were not convenient to do. It could be said that many of the large mercenary organizations in the world were secretly supported by the large countries of the world. For example, the Blackwater Security Company was formed by former members of the U.S. Navy SEALs and became a strong helper of the U.S. military in Afghanistan and Iraq. They received billions of dollars of contracts from the Pentagon every year. The Bear mercenaries also had many connections with the Russian government and the military. In the eyes of the Wolf King Alexander, Bobby and Thorpe were just puppets that he could casually manipulate. They were not worth mentioning, but the Glacier Bear and Constantine were his right-hand men. The reason why the rebel army led by Crown Prince Bobby could defeat the old government armies so quickly was because of the support of the thousands of Icefield Bears that could fight against 100 Icefield Bears. Otherwise, with Crown Prince Bobby's 1,000 men and a few Maxim machine guns left behind from World War II, they might not even be able to advance 10 kilometers before they were quickly devoured by President Kuba's remaining troops. He used a secret method of mind control to make Thorpe and Bobby kill each other. The professor was indeed an X-level psychic. He immediately understood the key points. At the same time, his face hardened as he pressed his hands against his forehead. His eyes suddenly emitted a blazing white light as two streams of spiritual energy blasted towards Jiang Tian. The professor's specialty was mind control, and he was the only psychic in the Western world who possessed X-level psychic power. He could read the thoughts and memories of others without physical contact. Through a special brainwave strengthening machine, he could even mentally link all the humans in the United States, regardless of whether they were ordinary humans or psychics. At the same time, his powerful psychic power could also kill everyone through this device. He also had two abilities. One was the thought cage, which could suppress or directly delete a person's personality and memory. The other was the thought stamp. In the 10 years of the Blue Storm's wild growth period, the professor once instilled the concept of food is poisonous into a prisoner in order to experiment. This person insisted on not eating any food for 3 months, even if the food was right in front of him and within his reach. In the end, he starved himself to death. Over the years, the professor had been studying Jiang Tian's information and pondering over every detail of his battle. He knew that Jiang Tian's psychic power was very strong. So he specifically asked Bell Labs to create a miniature version of the brainwave strengthening machine. Just this alone cost Bell Labs $30 million in research funds. The experiment proved that although the effect was not as good as a large-scale brainwave strengthening machine, it was still very good. It could increase his psychic power from 10 kilometers to over 100 kilometers, and his attack power had also increased a lot. My brainwaves, coupled with the newly developed miniature brainwave strengthening machine, might not be able to kill Kong Tae-chu, but at least I can stop him from controlling Thorpe, Bobby, and the others' minds. The professor exerted all his strength, his elegant and handsome face twisted ferociously, and sweat seeped out of it. He thought so. Boom. Two invisible psychic powers bombarded each other in the air, producing a thunderous explosion. The professor's body trembled violently, and blood spurted out of his 7 orifices like a fountain. His expression changed drastically as he looked at Jiang Tian in horror and said weakly, "Your psychic power is strengthening. Even if I give you the blood orchid, even if I give you another 100 years, you are still not my opponent." Jiang Tian was calm and composed as he said indifferently, "Today, I'll show you what true spiritual power is." Boom. Boom. The small golden lake on Jiang Tian's forehead rippled, and a mighty and ferocious golden-armored general leaped out, waving the green dragon crescent blade, stirring up clouds of dust as he ran toward the professor. "Stop him." Boom. 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 Many Blue Storm Arcanists and Gene Mutants attacked together, but they could not stop him at all. "Get out of the way." The professor was shocked to realize that this golden-armored general was actually a condensation of Jiang Tian's psychic power, and ordinary physical attacks were useless. However, it was extremely difficult to condense psychic power into a form, not to mention a humanoid form that might even have its own consciousness. This was too terrifying. The professor's eyes suddenly emitted rays of light, as deep as the sea. He urged all of his psychic power, which was as vast as the sea. He waved his hand, and a long sword formed from psychic power pierced toward the golden-armored general. Boom! The golden-armored general swung his blade high and slashed down with the weight of Mount Tai. With a light crack, the professor's psychic power longsword instantly shattered, turning into psychic fragments that were annihilated. With a sharp sound, the golden-armored general's longsword struck the professor's bald head. There was no blood splatter, and no wounds were left. The professor's body began to twitch, and the earthworm-like blood vessels on his forehead throbbed. Cold sweat the size of beans poured out crazily, and he gasped like a drowning man with his mouth open. Woo-woo. Jiang Tian played the god-swallowing flute, and the soulless tune's melody was both resentful and sorrowful, and it quickly disintegrated and refined the professor's psychic power. White light particles overflowed from the professor's head, condensing into white tentacles that drilled into the golden-armored general's body. The golden light around the golden-armored general became even brighter and more condensed, and it immediately turned into a golden light that drilled into Jiang Tian's forehead. In fact, soul-searching and soul-controlling techniques were both against the laws of nature. Even at the foundation establishment level, they could not be used carelessly, as they would devour one's blood essence and vital essence, causing one's cultivation to decrease. Therefore, normal cultivators would never dare to use this technique carelessly. Even though Jiang Tian had the gung metal divine body, after using the soul-controlling technique on Thorpe and Prince Bobby, it had a negative impact on his divine sense. Fortunately, he knew the soulless tune's secret technique and had the god-swallowing flute, which was a supreme-grade Dharma treasure. After devouring the professor's psychic power, he quickly recovered. What a powerful psychic power! This is completely new. I seem to have seen the end of the universe, the light of truth. The professor's eyes rolled back, but his face was full of joy, admiration, and crazy excitement. He seemed to be on drugs, or like a traveler who had been walking alone in a long dark tunnel for 10 days and 10 nights, and suddenly saw the light at the entrance of the tunnel. Following that, he suddenly let out a miserable howl as his head exploded. Blood, brain matter, and skull fragments splattered in the red mud of Africa, and there was a monkey's brain on fire next to it. The professor, 6th on the dark roll, one of the 5 giants of Blue Storm, was dead. What? All the overlords were shocked and took a few steps back subconsciously. They all knew that Jiang Tian was very powerful, but they always saw it in the information and didn't feel it so clearly. But now they truly felt the horror of Jiang Tian. Kong Teichu was too powerful. He controlled the consciousness of a warlord commander 10 kilometers away, and in the blink of an eye, he used his psychic power to condense the golden armor general and kill the world's #1 psychic attack overlord, the professor. At least, when it came to psychic attacks, no one present was Jiang Tian's match. Kong Teichu, I admit that you are indeed very powerful. Stop the psychic control, and I will withdraw immediately. Alexander roared in exasperation. That's the only way you can do. Do you have any other ideas? Jiang Tian said sarcastically. These words were not false. Jiang Tian only needed to send out a part of his spirit sense to control dozens of commanders, and he would be able to make thousands of troops kill each other. In less than 15 minutes, they would all be wiped out. The professor's idea is really stupid. Good for him to die. Alexander was so angry that he almost exploded. He wanted nothing more than to stomp the professor's body. Winter Soldier and Blue Storm both knew about the blood orchid. Almost the same time Zhang Qianlei broke through San Juan, they came to Sidoni to fight for the blood orchid. However, Zeus's message that Jiang Tian was here disrupted their rhythm, making them timid and not dare to move. All these years, Kong Teichu was too strong. Neither the professor nor Alexander had the confidence to win. In desperation, the two sides hit it off and decided to work together to deal with Kong Teichu. They must not let Kong Teichu get the blood orchid. Otherwise, the two top organizations in the world, Winter Soldier and Blue Storm, would be trampled under Jiang Tian's feet. Both sides shared intelligence and acted together. The professor took out the analysis of Kong Teichu's behavior and personality made by several top psychologists in the Pentagon. This top-secret document was more than 500 pages thick, but the conclusion was only a short line. Although Kong Teichu has superhuman abilities, he values his family and friends very much. He has deep feelings for his country and people. Therefore, the professor formulated this strategy. Besieging the Chinese refuge camp in Cass Lake so that Jiang Tian would give up the blood orchid and get out of Sidoni. Chapter 594. This was essentially no different from a bandit kidnapping a hostage and threatening the hostage's family for ransom. Wolf King Alexander also felt that it made sense. However, he never expected Jiang Tian's spiritual energy to be so powerful. Not only did he not gain any advantage, but he also caused the bear mercenary group to suffer heavy casualties, almost wiping them out. The Russian emperor would probably be furious if he heard about this. One must know that the Russian emperor was also a member of the KGB, and the leader of the bear mercenary group, Constantine, had once fought alongside him. The entire organization had been established with the emperor's support, subduing the enemy without fighting. Seeing this scene, Lin Fengmian's eyes lit up. His confidence increased and he straightened his back. Jiang Tian's move was much more impressive than taking the head of a general from an army of 10,000. The enemy commander had become his most loyal subordinate. In truth, his guess was not wrong. Jiang Tian's divine sense could now extend tens of kilometers. Now, it was useless even if the army was within 50 kilometers of Jiang Tian. Weapons with a range of 50 kilometers were also useless because they were all within the range of his divine sense. Only missiles and other weapons with a range of 50 kilometers, or weapons displayed within 50 kilometers without being detected by Jiang Tian, could pose a certain threat to Jiang Tian. However, Jiang Tian stopped after using his divine sense to blow up the heads of Crown Prince Bobby and Warlord Thorpe. There was no point in letting the rebel army and the Free Resistance army kill each other. They were all natives of Sidoni and had no culture. They were not bad people. The reason they had picked up guns was either because they had been instigated by Thorpe and Crown Prince Bobby or because they wanted to eat their fill. Kong Teichu, you killed the professor. Our blue storm will not rest until you're dead. Green Demon's eyes glinted fiercely as he roared like a tiger. His body suddenly expanded to 3 meters tall as he charged toward Jiang Tian. He had once consumed a gene-editing drug and awakened his body. He was incomparably powerful, but there were side effects. His personality was cruel, violent, and bloodthirsty. You're courting death. Lin Fengmian roared as he flew forward and punched out. The battle between the world's top powerhouses had finally begun with the death of the professor. Lin Fengmian was also on the Grandmaster roll of Huaxia. He had reached the peak of the Transcendent state and was definitely one of the top 10 Transcendent Grandmasters in Huaxia. Before Huaqing Tian and the others followed Jiang Tian into the half-step immortal realm, he was even stronger than Huaqing Tian and the others. He was even on par with Yi Zhantian. This punch was extremely ferocious, causing the wind to howl. A huge crack about 2 meters wide and more than 10 meters long was forcefully plowed open on the dirt square by the fist force storm. Rumble! There was a loud bang. The punch landed heavily on Green Devil's chest, which was shining with a strange green luster. Weak bug, you are not worthy to fight me. However, Luomo acted as if nothing had happened. With a sinister smile, he turned around and slapped at Lin Fengmian. Not good. Seeing this, Lin Fengmian's heart jumped. He only felt that this giant green palm was like a giant spirit slapping down, with an unstoppable force. He was afraid that he would be smashed into pieces. He quickly backed away. Rumble! The green demon's cauldron-like giant palm slammed into a stone house. The stone house was instantly torn apart, and many stones were reduced to dust. Lin Fengmian was blown 10 meters away by the gust of wind. Just as he was about to step forward. All right, old Lin, step back. I will deal with him. Jiang Tian cracked a smile and took a step forward. Lu Mo's body was much stronger than Tai Sang the giant elephant, and his strength had surpassed that of a physique refinement grandmaster. Not even a half-step immortal state warrior could kill him. Please forgive me for my incompetence. Lin Fengmian's face was full of shame. He jumped a few steps and retreated behind Jiang Tian. Kong Teichu, I am going to twist your head off and kick it like a ball. Lu Mo clenched his fists and roared like the Hulk. His green muscles bulged like a coiling dragon, containing a terrifying explosive power. Trash, I can send you flying with one slap. Jiang Tian didn't care about him. Rumble! Rumble! Green Demon was like an ancient ferocious god. He took large strides, causing the ground to tremble as he charged toward Jiang Tian. He covered 10 meters in one step. 100 meters disappeared under his running speed. Go to hell! Lu Mo's face was twisted as he threw a punch. It was like a missile that burned the air. It contained endless power and could smash a tank into pieces. Get out of my face! In response, Jiang Tian only waved his hand casually. Boom! Crack! The surging true essence was incomparably dense. Like a rolling mountain, it swept towards Lu Mo's swish. Green Devil was like a soccer ball that had been kicked away. He instantly flew more than 100 meters away. Rumble! He smashed into a tropical jungle. Towering trees that could be hugged by 2 or 3 people broke and crumbled one after another. The earth shook and the mountains shook. Attack! Kill him! Since the professor was dead, Wolf King Alexander immediately took over the command. He waved his hand and dozens of overlords attacked together. I will avenge Andre! The alpha wolf, Gar, leaped out. His special combat uniform exploded as he ran as fast as lightning. His body quickly expanded and became a 3-meter-tall werewolf covered in hair. He slapped down with his claws. In the process of slapping down, the originally human hand quickly became covered in hair, and sharp bone hooks grew out, grabbing towards Jiang Tian's neck. Rumble! Ivan, the Siberian hammer, was still wearing a colorful vest made of tiger skin on a hot day, revealing his strong muscles. He ran behind Jiang Tian and swung a hammer the size of a bucket at Jiang Tian's back. Plehanova, the ice witch, attacked from afar. She muttered a spell and waved her hand. A cold aura spread between heaven and earth. Crack, crack. Sharp ice thorns began to spread from her feet toward Jiang Tian. They could easily freeze and penetrate everything. At the same time, the Sea Lady of Blue Storm also attacked. A white cyclone with a radius of 10 meters fell from the sky. Lightning flashed in it and shrouded Jiang Tian. Although the cyclone was small, its power was comparable to a tropical hurricane. It contained a chaotic force field and majestic power. It could tear apart a warship and a half-step divine state master easily. Garl the wolf is a direct descendant of Alexander. His blood is pure and he has the power of a half-step divine state master like Hua Xia. Ivan, the Siberian hammer, is a genetic mutant created by the Winter Soldier Laboratory. He can smash an armored vehicle with a hammer. The Sea Lady seems to be a newly cultivated arcanist. But she is also level X, comparable to the professor. Plehanova's ice witchcraft can reduce boiling molten steel to -10 degrees Celsius in a second. Ms. Catherine, the founder of the butterfly skeleton, was moved and her face changed color. She thought to herself. She couldn't withstand a single blow from any of them. The lethality of the powerhouses on the power rankings was unimaginably strong. The key was that they cooperated very well. Those with strong physical bodies fought in close combat, while the long-range witches and arcanists cast spells from a distance. This was the result of their hard work over the past month. The power of their combined attacks was impossible to guard against. Kong Teichu was probably going to be defeated this time. Jiang Tian's jade-white palm gently reached out and grabbed the Wolfgarl's arm. He only shook it slightly. The Wolfgarl's arm, which was harder than diamond, was broken. He raised his neck and howled with all his might. Jiang Tian took a wrong step and pushed him back, causing him to collide with Ivan's giant hammer. Boom! The Wolfgarl's chest was smashed. He flew backward with blood spurting out of his mouth. Garl, I didn't mean to. Ivan didn't expect to accidentally injure his ally. He was stunned on the spot while holding his hammer, forgetting to attack again. Jiang Tian's figure flashed. His golden fist burned the air and smashed Ivan's chin with a tyrannical punch. Ivan flew 100 meters into the air like a monkey that had been ignited. He landed in the Sea Lady's cyclone and was torn to pieces. Rise! Jiang Tian stretched out his arms and gathered the ice spikes and cold air. He then twisted his body and smashed them toward the Sea Lady's head. This hugging and smashing seemed to be light as a feather. However, in the eyes of many experts, it was as if an ancient god had picked up Mount Buzhou. He picked up all the extreme cold and icicles that the snow which Plehanova had unleashed and smashed them at the sea lady. Not good. At this moment, the sea lady's expression changed drastically. She was alarmed, and the seawater energy inside her was about to be frozen. Her sexy and fiery body was as flexible as a ghost. She changed her position 7 times in a second, leaving a few blurry afterimages in the air as she dodged the cold air by a hair's breadth. As she dodged, she saw from the corner of her eye that Jiang Tian had already turned into a dazzling golden light and shot out. His golden hand grabbed the ice witch's slender neck. 2 times the speed of sound, even sublight speed. The sea lady cried out in alarm as if she had seen a demon. Even though she wasn't in the position of the ice witch, she still felt an indescribable fear. It was as if a poisonous snake had coiled around her body. Jiang Tian's speed was too terrifying. "Let go of me." The ice witch struggled and screamed. She activated her ice spells to the maximum. Her originally blue eyes turned into strange white ice crystals. Instantly, her surroundings changed. Extreme cold air spread out and completely enveloped Jiang Tian. Sharp ice swords, spears, and icicles shot out, as if they could even pierce through steel plates. She opened her mouth wide and shot out countless ice arrows toward Jiang Tian. At this moment, she was like an ice hedgehog. The cold air she released was close to the absolute lowest temperature. Jiang Tian was instantly covered in ice like an ice sculpture. His body suddenly turned sluggish. Around him, the fallen leaves froze in the air. The water flow froze. The air, and even space and time seemed to have solidified. Even the experts around him were rooted to the spot. A winter soldier 20 meters away died on the spot. Under this extreme low temperature, everything was dead silent and frozen. All life was severed. If one were to observe with a supermicroscope, they would discover that the horizontal movement of molecules was zero. The movement between molecules had already disappeared. Only weak electronic vibrations existed, almost enough to stop time. If Qing Tian and the others who had participated in the battle on Mount Everest were here, they would also cry out in alarm. The ice witch's secret technique was many times more powerful and cruel than the icicles used by the Master of Heaven, Oyila. However, all of this was useless against Jiang Tian, who had the golden gung divine body. Jiang Tian blinked lightly, his long eyelashes trembling. The ice crystals that covered his body instantly shattered and peeled off like molting skin. Chapter 595. At that moment, Jiang Tian was like an ice sculpture that had come to life. The whole world also came to life. The leaves continued to fall, the wind started to blow, and the river started to flow. Jiang Tian's right hand twisted slightly. With a crisp sound, the ice witch's neck was broken, and her headless corpse fell to the ground. Boom, boom. At that moment, Garland, Siberian Hammer Ivan, and the icicles that Jiang Tian had picked up and smashed onto the ground. Everything happened in less than 3 seconds. The result was, rank 18 on the power ranking, Garland, dead. Rank 9 on the power ranking, Ice Witch Plehanova, dead. Rank 17 on the power ranking, Siberian Hammer Ivan, dead. The sea witch was almost frozen to death on the spot. Her supernatural ability was temporarily suppressed, and she had completely lost her ability to fight. What? Seeing this, the pupils of the Winter Soldier's experts suddenly shrank. They were not surprised by Garland's death. After all, they had studied Jiang Tian's information. However, they had experienced the power of the Ice Witch's witchcraft. If she cast it quickly, she could even severely injure the Wolf King. With this secret technique, the Ice Witch had once reached rank 9 on the CIA's power ranking and rank 8 on the power ranking. Master Kong, this is too domineering. Amazing. Seeing this scene, Lin Fengmian was so excited that his whole body was trembling. Even though Jiang Tian had killed Miyamoto Genichi and defeated the Cherry Blossom Society, Lin Fengmian still did not believe in Jiang Tian. After all, according to the rumors, the Winter Soldiers and Blue Storm were too powerful. They were like giants that far surpassed the Cherry Blossom Society and the Huaxiaolong Formation. But now Jiang Tian had killed them like cutting vegetables. He had killed 3 people in an instant and severely injured one. As expected, this kid's cultivation is comparable to a real human immortal. Sitting on a rock, Zhang Qianlei gulped down a jug of fruit wine in one gulp. He sighed contentedly and leisurely. His physical body and movement technique are far faster than before. Twice the speed of sound. Terrifying, truly terrifying. There was dead silence. Everyone stared in disbelief at the tall and imposing figure in the middle of the field. Many of the Blue Storm members revealed deep fear, subconsciously taking a few steps back. Their surging passion for vengeance for the professor quickly turned into cold sweat. In comparison, the Winter Soldiers were more valiant. Amidst the angry roars and roars, many of the members approached Jiang Tian with ferocious expressions. Their killing intent surged, and their fighting spirit soared to the heavens. They were indeed worthy of the title of the fighting race. Kong Teichu, you're so ruthless. Wolf King Alexander's demonic red pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle tip. Filled with disbelief, he roared like a wolf. Today, the Winter Soldier organization will tear you to pieces. Alexander, you've overestimated your strength. You're just a few 4-legged beasts. You're not even fit to be my mounts. How dare you act so rashly? Jiang Tian's eyes were filled with disdain. He was like a god looking down on a lowly ant. Kong Teichu, I admit that you're very strong, but the wolf race is the most loyal, united, and brave. You've killed Andre and our old friend Xiaobin. Today, you've killed Ivan and head Wolfgar. Alexander roared at the sky, his voice echoing for several kilometers. A violent and cruel killing intent surged wildly. We must take revenge. Even if all of us die in battle, we must avenge our comrades. Boom, boom. Clothes exploded, and the bulletproof vests made of special fabric were torn apart. All the members of the Winter Soldier organization suddenly swelled to more than 2 meters tall, revealing their muscular upper bodies. Muscles covered in exuberant body hair swelled and bulged like a twisting dragon, pushing to the limit of strength. 1, 2, 3, 87, 88, 89. Zhu Jiangchao counted subconsciously. At first, his expression was relaxed, but gradually his eyes became more and more fearful. One by one, the Winter Soldiers poured out of the dense forest as if there was no end to them. In the end, there were as many as 156 of them. In the distance, the faces of many Huaxia people were extremely solemn and then turned into despair. These bastards are going to take turns to fight us. Lin Fengmian gasped. His expression changed drastically, and his voice trembled. It's like 156 green demons attacking together. It should be known that these Winter Soldiers had been genetically modified. Their bodies were extremely strong and their strength was comparable to or even surpassing that of a physique refinement grandmaster. They could withstand the strafing of machine guns and artillery shells. With such a terrifying body, even one of them could dominate the world and render the military and police helpless. With so many Winter Soldiers working together, it was enough to overturn a tank division. However, no matter how strong Jiang Tian was, he was only one person. Even if his body was made of iron, how many nails could he crush? Many Winter Soldiers gradually approached. Although they walked upright, their bodies were covered in exuberant hair. Their protruding mouths were like the mouths of wolves, with long and sharp fangs protruding from their lips. Their crimson eyes were shining with a strange red light. Their hands were completely in the shape of wolf claws, but they were wider, revealing sharp bone hooks. What the hell is this? Are they all werewolves? Why are there so many of them? Lin Fengmian was frightened. The densely packed werewolf warriors surrounded Jiang Tian like an iron bucket. Are they werewolves? Brother, count me in. I haven't killed a werewolf before. Zhang Qianlei was thrilled to see this. Yes, let's help you together. Huang Linger's face turned pale. She was full of nervousness and uneasiness. They're not real werewolves. Most of them are warriors modified with werewolf DNA. Jiang Tian said calmly, "Don't worry. I can deal with these animals alone." Alessandro was a real descendant of the werewolves, but in Jiang Tian's eyes, it was just SOSO. He had seen the dark moon werewolves in outer space years ago. They could absorb the grand moonlight of the stars and were as strong as golden core cultivators. The elite overlords among them could even travel across the universe and tear apart crystal warships with their bare hands. The werewolves on Earth, even if they were purebred, were far inferior to them. The difference was like heaven and earth. Moreover, these werewolves were actually humans who had been edited with werewolf DNA fragments. Oh my god. So the Winter Soldier organization really has werewolf DNA warriors. So these big countries are doing gene editing experiments that have long been banned by other countries. This time, it's definitely going to be big news. I just don't know if Kang Taechu is a match for them. In the depths of the forest, a blonde girl stood on top of a tree. She had a high-speed camera on her shoulder, and her sexy body was trembling with excitement. Patter! An unruly werewolf DNA warrior stared at Jiang Tian with bloodthirsty eyes and charged toward Jiang Tian. A shiny spear with a cold gleam pierced through the air and stabbed toward Jiang Tian's chest. But Jiang Tian countered, grabbing the tip of the spear and pulling it into his bosom. Then he kicked out. Rumble! The werewolf DNA warrior's chest instantly exploded, and he was sent flying dozens of meters away. He knocked down 3 of his comrades before rolling on the ground. Kill him. Bite his throat and tear him to pieces. They were humans, but they had been edited with werewolf DNA fragments, and their personalities had become as savage and violent as the werewolves. Jiang Tian's decisiveness in killing them did not extinguish their arrogance. Instead, it made them even more bloodthirsty and belligerent. Blood was about to spurt out of their eyes, and they became even redder and more demonic, flickering with an ominous glint. Rumble! Amidst the earth-shattering roars and howls, the werewolf DNA warriors charged toward Jiang Tian like a tide. They had the spirit of teamwork. Every 7 people formed a team, and they cooperated with each other with great tacit understanding. They were originally elites selected from the entire Russian race, and after being genetically modified by the werewolf DNA, their physical strength was even stronger. Each of them was comparable to a martial arts master. They leaped up and down, running around. Some opened their bloody mouths to bite, and some slapped with their huge claws. The sharp bone claws pierced through the air, and even an immortal state expert would be torn to pieces. Jiang Tian only smiled faintly at this. His body rushed forward. 3 werewolf DNA warriors were sent flying. 2 of them were smashed to pieces, and the last one was sent flying while howling like a dead dog. Jiang Tian stepped forward, leaned back, and threw the spear out like a javelin. With a cold gleam, the spear instantly broke through twice the speed of sound. Twice the speed of sound. Puff, puff, puff. 7 werewolf DNA warriors, who were about to charge down, were pierced through by the spear. Under Jiang Tian's sharp spear, the werewolf DNA warriors, who had copper skin and iron bones that could withstand the bombardment of cannonballs, could not withstand a single blow. The spear pierced through the 7 werewolf DNA warriors like meat skewers, and the surging airwaves sent them flying. A path was blasted open by the werewolf DNA warriors, and they were nailed to a mountain wall. Seeing this scene, many werewolf DNA warriors were shocked. They howled in a low voice and subconsciously took a few steps back. Jiang Tian could kill 7 werewolf DNA warriors with a single blow. Did this not mean that Jiang Tian only needed a little more than 20 blows to kill all of them? Seeing this, even the Wolf King Alexander was shocked. He could not believe it, and then he howled toward the sky. Don't be afraid of him. He only needs to break through the sound barrier to kill you. Even if he is at the peak of the immortal state, even if he is a human immortal from Huaxia, he can't keep breaking the sound barrier to attack. He won't be able to hold on any longer. Bastard, you underestimate humans too much. End this battle in 5 blows. Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully and attacked again. First blow. As soon as Jiang Tian finished speaking, he waved his fingers. Clang. One sound. A gunmetal chi weapon, which was over 20 meters long, swept out like a broken silver vase. The current gunmetal chi weapon was different from before. There were dense runes flashing on it, and its lethality had been greatly increased. It was more than 10 times stronger than before. The previous gunmetal chi weapon could cut through special steel. But now, it was so sharp that it could cut through almost anything. Even pure chromium, large pieces of diamond, and even titanium alloy could be easily cut through. It could be said that there were only a few special metals in the world that could withstand this attack. The dazzling golden light swept across like a fan. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.